We assume we need spreadsheets with 19 tabs and investment strategies that require a degree to understand.
And this ironclad, painful discipline. Open an
Yes.
app or browser
But
tab,
today,
doesn't matter which.
we are
You have
pivoting
absolutely no intention of
hard.
buying anything.
We
You're
are
just
looking at a source
just
scrolling that takes the
absolute
modern version of window
opposite
shopping
approach.
But the
It
store
really
has
is a radical
everything
shift,
in the world.
especially
And
now.
then we're doing a deep
20
dive
minutes
into a
later,
text called
somehow
Calm
your
Life,
credit card
Money,
information has been
Simplicity, and
entered.
Peace.
You've bought a,
And what's
I don't know,
immediately
a
fascinating
specialized
here is
coffee
the
grinder
format of the source
or
itself.
noise-canceling headphones.
Some
Well, it's actually
skincare
written
serum
as
that
a
promises
gentle,
to fix
sleep-friendly
everything.
text.
Yes.
It's
And the
designed to
weirdest
be
part
read
is,
slowly
in that moment,
to
as you
help
click
relax.
place order,
Which is so
you
ironic,
feel this,
isn't it?
this real
Usually
sense
reading
of
about money
accomplishment,
is
like you
better
just
than a
solved a
double shot of
problem.
espresso
And then the box
for
shows
keeping
up
you
3
awake.
days later.
And you just look at it and think, why? Why did I do that?
That is the exact question we are digging into today. Because we love to think of ourselves as rational, Homo economicus, making logical choices.
Right.
But the stack of research we're exploring for this deep dive, all focused on the psychology of spending, just completely shatters that idea.
It really does. That rational actor model it's basically a fairy tale we tell ourselves. The reality that these sources describe is so much messier.
It's not logic.
No, it's biology. It's emotion. A lot of the time, it's a coping mechanism.
And before we get into the neuroscience, which we are definitely going to do, I think we need to set a ground rule for this deep dive.
Okay.
Because reading through this, I definitely had a few moments where I winced. It is really easy to feel judged.
For sure. But the authors are so clear about this. The goal here is not guilt.
No.
Guilt is actually the enemy. As we'll see, guilt is a stressor. And what does stress do? It triggers more spending, a vicious loop.
So the mission today is awareness over guilt.
Exactly. We're just popping the hood to see how the engine works so that next time you feel that urge, you understand the mechanism. You're not just a passenger.
Okay, let's pop the hood. And we have to start with the engine itself, the brain.
Right.
Most people have heard of dopamine. It's always called the pleasure chemical. You buy something, you get dopamine, you feel good. Simple.
And that is a massive and I'd say dangerous oversimplification.
Why dangerous?
Because it completely misses why we shop in the first place. The source material draws a line between two very different systems in the brain. There's the wanting system and the liking system.
This part really blew my mind. I just assumed they were the same thing. I want a pizza because I like the pizza.
You'd think so, but in the brain, they run on totally different neural pathways. Liking is opioids and endocannabinoids. That's the actual enjoyment when you eat the slice or, wear the new sweater.
Okay.
But wanting, that's all dopamine. And dopamine is not about pleasure. It's about pursuit.
It's the hunting instinct.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a seeking system. Evolution designed it to get you off the couch to find food or a partner. So when you see those headphones online, your brain isn't releasing dopamine to say, hey, those are nice.
What is it saying?
It's creating an itch, a tension. It's saying, if you get that, your life will be better. Go get it.
That makes so much sense. It explains why the anticipation is almost always better than the actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading about prediction error, and it just clicked. It explains that letdown feeling perfectly.
Right. Can you break that down?
Yeah. So the dopamine spikes during the hunt, right? It
Yeah.
peaks just before you get the thing. So right when you click buy, you're basically high on the possibility of how great this thing will make your life.
And then it arrives.
And then it arrives, and your brain goes, okay, mission complete, and the dopamine just crashes.
And that's the prediction error. Your brain predicted this huge, life-altering reward. The reality is, it's just a physical object. It's a coffee grinder. It can't possibly live up to that chemical hype.
And right on the heels of that, hedonic adaptation kicks in.
Which is the fancy term for the fact that we just get used to stuff incredibly quickly.
That shiny new car is just the car in a month. The new phone is just my phone.
The baseline just resets.
Yeah.
And because that dopamine rush is gone and the new thing is now normal, the brain immediately starts scanning the horizon for the next target.
It's a treadmill.
It's a biological treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
And just realizing that, I think, is the first step toward freedom. You're not broken for wanting more things. You're literally fighting millions of years of programming that says pursuit is survival.
And it can't just be biology, right? Because if it were only dopamine, we'd all be addicted to buying everything all the time. But we have our own specific triggers.
Yes. This is where we move from the engine to the driver. Dopamine provides the fuel, but our emotions are steering the car.
The sources mention that acronym, HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Right, the classic triggers.
But it felt like they went deeper. They talked about spending as a form of emotional regulation.
Or maybe emotional dysregulation. I mean,
Yeah.
think about retail therapy. We say it as a joke, but it is a very real psychological event.
How does that actually work?
Well, when you're stressed, your cortisol levels are high. The act of spending, making a choice, acquiring something can give you a temporary hit that lowers that stress.
But there was one specific emotional driver in the text that really stood out to me. And it wasn't just stress, it was the need for control.
Oh, that's a huge one.
The idea that when life feels totally out of control, your job is insane, the news is overwhelming, you feel this loss of agency, you can't fix the world.
You can't fix your boss.
But you can buy a label maker.
The label maker is the perfect example. It's the symbol of order.
It is. I have totally done this. I felt overwhelmed by some huge project, and instead of working on it, I go on Amazon and buy organizational tools. The source called it proxy control.
That's such a great term for it. You solve a tiny, manageable problem because the macro problem feels too big. A transaction is a perfect little story. I want this, I pay for it, I get it. It's a moment of pure cause and effect in a world that, rarely feels that simple.
It creates this false sense of stability. For 5 minutes, you are the master of your universe.
And that's why it's so compelling. You're not buying the product, you're buying the feeling of being in charge.
And then there's just plain old boredom, which I think we underestimate. The reading mentioned the dopamine menu concept, that we all have this menu of things we can do to get a little stimulation. And for many of us, shopping has just become the easiest appetizer to order.
Because it's frictionless. Reading a book takes effort. Learning to play guitar takes effort. Scrolling and clicking. It's passive. It's high reward, low effort stimulation that fills that void instantly.
Okay, so we've got the biological engine with dopamine. We've got the emotional triggers like stress and control.
But we aren't doing this in a vacuum.
No, we're doing it in an environment that is engineered from the ground up to weaponize those two things against us.
Now we have to talk about the marketing machine.
And not just ads exist. The sources were really specific about how sophisticated this has all become. It's not about product features anymore. It's about identity.
This is the ideal self gap. Marketers know you have your actual self, who you are today, maybe a little tired, a little insecure, and then you have your ideal self.
The person you want to be.
The person you want to be. The fit, adventurous, organized, successful you.
And the product is always positioned as the bridge between the two.
Exactly. They aren't selling a jacket. They are selling the lifestyle of the person who wears that jacket. You buy the fleece, you're buying into the identity of the eco-conscious explorer, even if you only wear it to the supermarket.
That reminds me of the Diderot effect that came up in the reading, the philosopher Denis Diderot.
Yeah, the story of his dressing gown.
Right. He gets this beautiful, fancy scarlet dressing gown, and all of a sudden he looks around his office and everything else, his chair, his rug, it all looks shabby in comparison.
So he has to upgrade everything.
He replaces the rug, then the chair, then the desk. The introduction of one new identity item created this cascade of consumption to make everything else match.
And marketers trigger that constantly. You get the new phone, now your old headphones feel inadequate. You buy the nice sofa, now the paint on the walls looks dingy.
And social media has just poured jet fuel on that entire fire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because your ideal self is no longer just this internal idea. It's being curated and displayed by everyone else's highlight reels 24/7.
The sources called it the shift from keeping up with the Joneses to keeping up with the Kardashians.
Or even just keep up with the algorithm. When it's just the Joneses next door, the comparison group was small.
Limited.
Now you're comparing your daily life to the top 1% of the planet's most beautifully curated experiences. Your brain's social comparison circuit just lights up like a Christmas tree.
And that triggers this primal fear of falling behind, of being irrelevant.
Which is a deep evolutionary fear. For our ancestors, being cast out of the tribe meant death. So when we spend to fit in, we're actually soothing a very old anxiety about being excluded.
Okay, let's just pause here for a second, because this can all start to feel pretty bleak.
It can.
We're up against our own brain chemistry, our deepest insecurities, and a multi-trillion-dollar industry that knows exactly which buttons to push. It feels like a rigged game.
It is a rigged game, but, and then this is the big pivot, you don't have to play. Which brings us back to the whole mission here.
Awareness over guilt.
Exactly. The goal is not to go live in a cave and weave your own sandals.
Right. The sources are very clear on this. There's nothing inherently wrong with buying things you enjoy.
Nothing at all. The problem isn't consumption. It's mindless consumption. It's the gap between what you think you're doing, making a rational choice, and what you're actually doing.
Which is usually soothing an emotion.
Right.
This gets us to that distinction between wants and needs, and I think this is a tricky area because needs can be a very slippery word.
It is. Strictly speaking, needs are food, water, shelter, basic clothing. Almost everything else is a want. But we have been taught to demonize wants. We act like wanting something is frivolous or bad.
So what do? We do these mental gymnastics to reclassify our wants as needs.
Precisely. You don't say, I want the new iPhone because it looks cool. You say, I need the new iPhone because my current battery drains 10% faster, and that's critical for my work.
We invent a rationalization to get past our own internal guilt filter.
But what the authors argue is that the healthiest thing to do is just admit it's a want, to own it, to say, I am buying this $6 latte, not because I need caffeine, but because I want the experience of being in this coffee shop right now.
It strips away the self-deception, and weirdly, when you do that, you feel more in control, not less.
Because you're making a conscious choice, not fulfilling some imaginary mandate. And once you own it as a choice, you can actually ask if it's worth it. Do I want this enough to trade an hour of my work for it?
So, okay, how do we put this into practice? In the moment, when the dopamine is firing and there's a countdown clock on the website, it's really hard to be that philosophical.
It is incredibly hard, which is why you need a system. You have to intentionally introduce friction. The sources call this the power of the pause.
Friction is the enemy of impulse.
It is. I mean, Amazon's one-click buy, Apple Pay, they spend billions to remove every possible point of friction. They want a direct line from your dopamine center to your bank account.
Yeah.
Your job is to manually add that friction back in.
And the main tactic is a mandatory waiting period.
Yes.
Yeah.
24 to 48 hours is ideal. See something you want? Fine. Put it in the cart. But you make a hard rule. You cannot click buy until tomorrow.
What's happening in the brain during that delay?
The neurochemicals are metabolizing that intense dopamine spike we talked about. It has a half-life. It's powerful, but it's short. If you just step away, the chemical urge literally fades. You wake up the next morning with cool brain, not a hot one.
I've done this, and it's actually shocking how often I completely forget I even put something in the cart.
And that's the proof right there. If you forgot about it, it was never about the item. It was about the feeling in that moment.
So during that pause, the text says to ask yourself 3 specific questions, and they aren't, can I afford this?
No, that's a math question. These are psychological questions.
Question 1 is, why do I want this right now?
The key words are right now. It forces you to look at the immediate trigger. Did I just see an ad? Did I have a bad day? Am I bored?
Okay. Question 2, how am I feeling at this moment?
This is the AGLT check. If the answer is I'm feeling lonely or I'm feeling stressed, then you know the purchase is probably a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And a new pair of shoes is a terrible cure for loneliness.
Well, that's the hard truth. Okay, and the third question, which I think is maybe the most powerful, will this matter to me in a month?
This one is huge. It breaks the tunnel vision of urgency. Our brains are terrible at thinking about our future selves. We always prioritize present me. This question forces you to imagine future you.
It's about seeing past the unboxing. Visualize the item after the novelty has worn off. Is it still adding value, or is it just clutter?
And if you do all that, you wait 24 hours, you ask the questions, and you still genuinely want the item.
Then buy it and enjoy it guilt-free.
Exactly. This isn't about deprivation. It's just about intentionality.
So the end goal really is to stop using spending as a solution for emotional problems.
Money is a tool. It's a really bad therapist.
Yeah.
When we ask a material object to do a spiritual or emotional job, it can't hold that weight. It's not designed for it.
That brings me to the closing thought from the sources, which I found really profound. It suggests that what we're actually chasing isn't the stuff itself.
No, never. We're chasing the feeling we think the stuff will give us. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like we belong. We want excitement. We want to feel competent.
We've just been conditioned to believe those feelings can be bought.
But safety comes from internal stability, not a better home security system. Belonging comes from connection with people, not from wearing the right brand.
And once you really get that, deep down, the urge to shop doesn't vanish, but it loses its power over you.
You can walk into a store, see something beautiful, appreciate it for what it is, and then just leave it there. You don't need to possess it to be whole.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought from this deep dive. It's something to consider the next time you find yourself scrolling. We spend so much money building an identity with our clothes, our gadgets, our home decor. But if you stripped away all the spending you do for stress relief, if you took away the things you buy out of boredom, and if you removed everything you bought just to prove something to other people, How much of your identity would be left on the shelf?
And, more importantly, who would you be underneath it all?
That is the real deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Until next time. Okay, I want you to picture a specific moment. It's a 3 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
You've been staring at a screen for, what, 6 hours? Your coffee has long since worn off.
And you're left with that jittery, sort of acidic feeling in your stomach.
Exactly. You look at your to-do list, and somehow, and this is the part that drives me crazy, it is actually longer than it was at 9 a.m.
Then comes that physical sensation, right? That tightening in the chest.
Yes, it's that low-level hum of panic, the voice in your head just whispering, you are not doing enough, you're behind, you are failing.
And that's pretty much the universal soundtrack of modern work. We're all, culturally conditioned to think the solution is just to speed up.
Do more, do it faster, optimize every single second.
Yeah, it's a race where the finish line keeps moving.
And the worst part, and this is what we're really digging into today, is that we've attached our self-worth to that race. If I'm not crushing it, am I even, worthy?
That is the exact existential crisis our source material is tackling. We're looking at a guide called How to Be Productive Without Burning Out.
Okay.
But I want to be clear right up front. This is not a list of, life hacks. We are not going to tell you to wake up at 4 a.m.
Oh, thank goodness, because if I hear one more guru tell me that sleep is for the weak, I think I might just scream.
Right. So the mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle that old high-pressure idea of productivity.
And replace it with something based on
Yeah.
what? Balance. Sustainability.
Sustainability is the key word. The source makes this really provocative claim right at the beginning. Productivity is not about emptying the tank every single day.
I love that.
True productivity, the kind that lasts for years, not just a few weeks, is about working in a way that actually supports your life instead of draining it.
So it challenges that whole idea that burnout is just the price you pay for being successful.
Precisely. That idea that if you aren't suffering, you aren't working hard enough.
Okay, so we have a lot to unpack. We're going to look at the anatomy of burnout, which is much sneakier than just being tired.
And then we'll get into the science of managing your energy, not just your time.
And my favorite part? The idea that doing less is actually the path to doing better, which I have to admit sounds like a paradox.
It does, but the logic really holds up. But before we get to the solutions, we have to properly diagnose the problem. We need to talk about the beast itself, burnout.
Right. And the source makes a very sharp distinction between stress and burnout. They are not the same thing.
I think most people use them interchangeably, but they're fundamentally different.
So what's the technical difference?
Think of it this way. Stress is a problem of too much. Too many pressures, too many demands. You feel overwhelmed.
But you can still imagine that if you just got things under control, you'd feel better. You're still sort of in the fight.
Exactly. You're engaged. Burnout is different. It's a problem of not enough. Not enough motivation, not enough connection, not enough meaning.
It's a state of emptiness.
Yes. The text defines it as what happens when effort goes on for a long, long time without any meaning or rest.
That hits hard. It's the futility of it. Feeling like a hamster on a wheel, you're moving, but you're going nowhere.
And the source really emphasizes this does not happen overnight. This is so crucial for you to understand.
You don't just wake up one day and have burnout.
No, it's a slow creep. The source lays out these stages, and I think it's worth going through them because they look deceptively normal at first.
I found this part terrifyingly relatable. Let's start with stage one.
Stage one is the compulsion to prove. This one is tricky because it actually looks like you're a high performer.
You feel tired, sure, but you're also super motivated. You're running on adrenaline.
You're taking on extra projects. You're trying to prove your worth.
And you're telling yourself, I just need to power through this month, and then things will calm down. But the month never ends.
Correct. And that leads to stage two, frustration and cynicism. The adrenaline starts to fade, and now you're just irritated.
You start feeling detached from your work, maybe snapping at people.
I love your name for it, the per my last email phase.
Yeah, you're just angry that tasks even exist.
And that cynicism, it's a defense mechanism. Your brain is trying to distance itself from the pain. If you don't catch it there, you hit stage three, collapse.
The danger zone.
This is where the lights go out. Even a small task, like internalize it as a personal failure.
But the text says something completely different. It says, burnout is not a sign of weakness. It is often a sign that someone has been trying too hard for too long.
It's just such a profound reframing. It means the people most likely to burn out are often the most dedicated and conscientious ones.
Wow. So it's not that you're weak. It's that you've been strong for way too long without any support.
It changes the whole diagnosis. It's not the driver's fault the car broke down. It's that you can't redline an engine indefinitely.
Right, it's just basic physics. If the engine overheats, it's not because the engine is lazy.
It's because the system wasn't maintained.
So the solution isn't to just slam your foot on the gas pedal harder. The source says we need a whole paradigm shift, away from time management.
And toward energy management, this is the real pivot point of the whole guide.
Because traditional productivity is obsessed with the clock, right?
Yeah.
8 hours, fill them up.
It treats us like machines. But the text argues productivity is biological. All hours are not created equal.
I love that phrase. It's so true.
It is. We act like our energy at 9 a.m. is the same as 3 p.m. Biologically, that's just impossible. We're governed by something called ultradian rhythms.
Okay, unpack that for us. Ultradian rhythms.
So most people have heard of circadian rhythms, the 24-hour sleep-wake cycle.
Right.
Ultradian rhythms are shorter cycles that happen during the day. Research suggests our brains can only really focus intensely for about 90 to 120 minutes.
And after that?
After that, they need a break, a reset.
So that slump I feel after I've been working hard for a couple hours, that's not me being lazy.
No, that is your biology screaming for a recovery period. Your brain has literally run low on the fuel it needs for deep focus.
Okay, so practically what do we do with that? We can't just tell our boss, sorry, my ultradian rhythm is off right now.
Oh, well, you could try. But the strategy is to map your work to your energy. You have to identify your biological prime time.
For most people, that's the morning, but not for everyone.
And you protect that time. You reserve those high energy peaks for your most important work, the deep, creative, strategic stuff.
And then, when that inevitable dip hits in the afternoon,
You don't have to stop working. You just switch the type of work. You use that low energy time for what the source calls shallow work.
answering routine emails, filing stuff, scheduling meetings, things that don't need a ton of brain power.
You're matching the task to the fuel in the tank.
Yeah.
If you try to do heavy lifting when you're in a slump, you just get exhausted and frustrated.
Which brings us to the part of the guide that I think is the hardest for people to accept.
The idea of doing less.
In a culture that just screams hustle 24/7, this feels, I don't know, almost illegal.
It feels completely counterintuitive, but the source grounds this in the science of cognitive load.
It says a long to-do list is actually a productivity killer. Why is that?
Well, it's more than just being intimidating. When your brain sees a list with 50 items on it, it registers a threat. It creates a stress response.
And stress makes it harder to focus.
It biologically inhibits the part of your brain you need for focus. But there's also something called the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect. Sounds like a Bond villain.
It's a psychological thing where your brain remembers unfinished tasks much better than finished ones.
All those unfinished things on my list are just hanging out in the back of my mind.
Exactly. They create open loops that are constantly draining your mental battery in the background. You're sabotaging your own focus.
Plus, every time you jump between tasks, there's a cost, right?
A huge one. They call it switching cost. It takes, on average, something like 23 minutes to get back into deep focus after you've been interrupted.
That's horrifying. So multitasking is basically a lie.
It's a biological impossibility. You're just switching context really fast and paying a mental tax every single time you do it.
So the recommendation is radical. Quality over quantity.
Choose just a few important tasks, maybe 3, and focus on finishing them.
And think about the psychological boost of that. Finishing one big thing feels so much better than starting 10 little things and finishing none of them.
You get that dopamine hit, you close the loop, you get energy back.
But to get the energy to finish those big things, we have to talk about the R word. Rest.
The thing we are all so bad at.
This section really called me out. It confronts this belief that rest is a reward, that you only get to rest after everything is done.
But the source has this brilliant, if slightly depressing reality check for that.
What's that?
In real life, everything is never done.
It's so true. The laundry is never done. The emails never stop. If you wait for everything to be finished, you'll rest when you're dead.
Which is why the guide reframes rest completely. It's not a luxury, it's a biological maintenance requirement.
It's like charging your phone. You don't wait till it's at 0% to charge it. You charge it so it works.
Yes, but here's where it gets really interesting. The source distinguishes between numbing and resting.
Ooh, this is a big one. I definitely confuse the two. Is scrolling Instagram for an hour rest?
According to the source, no, that's numbing. It gives you a little dopamine hit, but it's high sensory input. Your brain is still processing a ton of data.
So what's true rest?
True rest engages what's called the default mode network, or
The
DMN.
DMN, okay.
It's the brain network that kicks in when you're not focused on the outside world, when you're daydreaming or walking in nature or just staring out a window.
And that's important.
It's crucial. That's when your brain consolidates memories, makes new connections. It's where creativity comes from.
So when I'm just staring at a wall doing nothing, my brain is actually doing some of its most important work.
Exactly. Rest isn't the absence of activity. It is a different kind of activity.
I love that. Okay, so we're doing less, we're resting better, but we still have jobs. The source talks about creating gentle routines.
Structure without pressure. That's the key phrase.
Because when I hear routine, I think of those intense YouTube videos. 4 a.m., ice bath, 4.15, journal.
And if you miss one step, your whole day feels ruined. That's a brittle routine. A gentle routine is like a guardrail, not a cage.
So what does that look like in practice?
It's mostly about bookending your day. First, start the day slowly. Don't check your email the second you open your eyes.
You guilty.
That just spikes your cortisol and puts your brain in reactive mode instantly. Second, take those regular breaks we talked about. And third, and this is so important now, have a clear shutdown ritual.
Ah, the end time. It's so hard when your office is your kitchen table. The work just bleeds into everything.
Which is why the ritual is so important, a physical action. Close the laptop, tidy your desk, go for a walk. Something that tells your brain, work mode is off now.
That helps with the psychological detachment.
It does. But speaking of detachment, we have to talk about the hardest skill in the whole guide.
The art of saying no.
The necessity of refusal.
It is so socially painful. It feels like you're letting people down. It feels dangerous.
It feels dangerous because we're wired to avoid social rejection. But the source grounds this in the simple economics of energy. It's a zero-sum game.
You can't just create more energy out of thin air.
Exactly. So every yes has a cost. Saying yes to something trivial means you are, by definition, saying no to something essential.
If I say yes to a meeting I don't need to be in, I'm saying no to my deep work or my rest.
Precisely. So you're reframing it. It's not about being unkind or lazy. It's about understanding your limits so you can protect your ability to show up fully when it really matters.
That actually helps with the guilt. You're not saying no because you don't care. You're saying no because you care about doing a good job on the things that count.
And people respect that clarity more than we think they will.
Okay, let's go a little deeper for a minute.
Yeah.
The final section of the source gets into something almost philosophical. It's about why we get into this mess in the first place. It's about identity.
This is the absolute core of it. You can fix your schedule, you can take all the breaks, but if you don't address this, you'll just burn out again.
And the main point is,
Productivity is a tool, not an identity.
I feel that. I think a lot of us, if we're honest, feel like we are only as valuable as what we produce. I was busy today, therefore I am good.
It's called enmeshment in psychology. Your self-worth gets all tangled up with your output, and the source just says, no. You are not valuable because of what you produce.
You are valuable just because you exist. A human being, not a human doing.
It sounds a little like a greeting card, but when you really try to live by it, it's terrifying.
Because if you strip away the job title and the to-do list, you're just left with you. And for a lot of high achievers, that silence is the scariest thing in the world.
It's deeply uncomfortable, but the text contrasts how these two mindsets feel in your body. Toxic productivity feels heavy, it feels frantic, and it's based in fear.
And the alternative, sustainable productivity.
The source describes it as feeling calm, steady, quiet, and kind.
Quiet and kind. I have never once associated the word kind with productivity. Productivity is supposed to be aggressive. Crush it. Kill it.
It's a radical shift. It suggests a healthy approach has to have space for grace, for the fact that you're a biological organism that has bad days and needs rest.
So if we put it all back together, the synthesis here, the big picture.
Is that we have to move from a mechanical view of ourselves to a biological one. We have to respect the organism.
Which means managing energy, not time.
It means needing rest as fuel, not as a reward. It means gentle routines and setting boundaries. And it means we have to stop measuring our days by how many boxes we checked.
Yes. The shift is internal. The guide suggests changing the question you ask yourself every morning instead of, how can I do more?
You ask, how can I work in a way that feels sustainable?
That's the takeaway right there. Sustainability. Because if you burn out, You're not productive at all. A broken engine goes nowhere.
The goal is to stay in the race for the long haul, not sprint until you collapse at mile 2.
So as you, our listener, go about your day-to-day, whether you're at work or washing dishes or just staring at that to-do list, try to summon that feeling of quiet and steady.
And check your energy, not just the clock. Remember the lesson on identity.
Right, and here's a thought to leave you with, something to chew on that really comes from that identity section. If you stripped away everything you produce today, every email, every task, if you achieve 0 results,
Would you still feel valuable?
the source suggests the answer is yes. But actually believing that, living that truth, that's the ultimate challenge.
Something to explore. Thanks for diving in with us. Okay, picture the scene. It's a Tuesday night, or maybe it's early Sunday morning. You've finally carved out that holy grail of modern life, free time.
Right.
You have a clear goal. Maybe you need to finish a report, study for certification, or honestly, maybe you just want to read that novel that's been gathering dust.
You have the coffee, you have the comfy chair, the intention is there.
Exactly. You sit down, you open the book or the laptop, and then tick, tick, tick. 30 seconds later, what is actually happening?
Oh, I know this one. You are scrolling through a social media feed, or
Yeah.
you're suddenly just paralyzed by the thought of an email you might have forgotten to send 3 days ago.
Yes.
Or, my personal favorite, you find yourself deeply, deeply invested in researching the weather patterns for a vacation you haven't even booked yet.
It's so immediate. It's like trying to hold on to a wet bar of soap. The mind just slips. And the feeling that follows isn't usually, oh, well, better luck next time.
No, it's frustration.
Mm-hmm.
It is this heavy, sinking feeling that focusing has become technically harder than it's ever been.
It feels like a universal problem right now. And because it's so hard, we build this whole story around it, don't we?
We do. We tell ourselves it's a character flaw, that we lack discipline. We need to buckle down or grit our teeth,
Right, the brute force method. If I just, hate myself enough, I'll eventually do the work.
which, spoiler alert, rarely works. But today, we are doing a deep dive into some fascinating research, all anchored by an article called How to Stay Focused in a World Full of Distraction.
Okay.
And our mission here is really to dismantle that exact myth. The big takeaway from all our research isn't that you need more discipline. It's that you need to stop fighting your own biology.
I'm listening. Because if the answer isn't just try harder, I am very, very interested.
Well, the answer is significantly more nuanced.
Yeah?
It's about understanding the mechanics of attention, like cognitive load and attentional residue. And it's about managing your environment to lower that load.
Okay.
And maybe most surprisingly, it's about treating your brain with kindness rather than with force.
Okay, I have to stop you right there. Kindness. I'm going to be honest, that sounds a little soft. If I have a deadline in 2 hours and I'm procrastinating, being kind to my brain feels like a great way to get fired. How does kindness actually get the report written?
It sounds so counterintuitive, I know. But the research suggests that, well, that self-flagellation, it actually takes up mental bandwidth. It consumes the very energy you need for the task.
Yeah.
The source makes it really clear. Focus isn't a personality trait you lack. It's a biological system that you can actually optimize.
So let's get into the machinery of this, because I think most people, myself included, assume the problem is obvious. It's the glowing rectangle in my pocket. It's the phone.
That is certainly the external trigger. I mean, the source acknowledges that today's world is an ecosystem of noise notifications, messages, algorithm video feeds, all of it.
Right.
But here is where it gets really interesting and where we need to look at the brain's default mode network. The source makes this critical distinction between external noise and internal noise.
Internal noise, you mean like my own brain's sabotaging me?
Essentially, we tend to think distraction comes from the outside. But studies show that, on average, we shift our attention about 4 times per minute, often without any external prompt at all.
4 times a minute. That's terrifying.
It's the internal noise. We're talking about worries, random memories, future planning, that awkward thing you said 5 years ago.
Oh, yes.
This is often linked to that default mode network in the brain, which activates when we aren't focused on a specific task. It's basically the daydreaming circuit.
So I can be in a soundproof bunker, phone locked in a safe, and my default mode network is still going to be throwing random thoughts at me.
Precisely. And the source points out that technology just aggravates this. It's not just that the apps catch our attention, it's that our interaction with them has rewired our baseline for stimulation.
The dopamine loop, the slot machine effect.
Exactly. And over time, the brain just habituates to that high level of input. So when you finally do turn everything off, Silence doesn't feel peaceful.
Right.
Silence feels threatening. It feels like withdrawal.
Silence can feel uncomfortable. That really hits home for me. It explains why I reach for my phone when I'm just standing in an elevator for 10 seconds.
You're not even checking anything specific, right?
No, I'm just avoiding the silence.
You're avoiding the drop in stimulation. And the source puts it really well. This doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your brain is responding naturally to the environment it lives in. Your brain is trying to protect you from boredom.
I think that validation is so important because it's easy to spiral into thinking I'm broken or I used to be able to read for 3 hours. What happened to my brain?
You are not broken.
I'm not.
You're just adapted to a high stimulation world. And once you realize that internal noise is a biological reflex, you can stop blaming your character and start adjusting your strategy.
Speaking of character, that brings us to another huge myth the source tackles, the idea of the focused personality. I hear this constantly. Oh, I'm just not the focused type. I've said it myself. I'm a creative, scattered brain. I thrive in chaos. Is that even a real thing?
It's a very common excuse.
Yeah.
And while, sure, personality traits vary, the source frames focus completely differently. It argues that focus is a skill. It's a neurocognitive capacity, not some fixed personality trait.
So if it's a skill, that implies it can be trained, like learning a language.
Or even more physically, like a muscle.
Right.
The source uses the muscle analogy, and I want to get a little deeper into that. If you put your arm in a cast for 6 weeks, what happens?
Well, the muscle shrinks. It atrophies.
Right. And in our modern environment, our deep focus muscle is essentially in a cast.
Mhm.
We rarely use it because we're constantly grazing on shallow information.
Yeah.
So when you try to use it, it feels weak. It feels painful.
So when I sit down to work and I feel that physical resistance that I can't do this feeling, that's just the atrophy talking.
That is the muscle fatigue. A physical muscle gets stronger when you use it gently and regularly. But what happens if you try to, I don't know, bench press 300 pounds on your first day back at the gym?
You tear something, you get injured badly.
And attention works the same way. The source says attention gets tired when it's overused or constantly interrupted. If you're forcing it all day, of course it's going to fail.
Right.
The goal, according to our material, isn't perfect robot-like focus. The goal is gentle, repeatable attention.
Gentle, repeatable attention. That feels so much more sustainable than the, hustle culture version of focus.
Sustainability is everything. If you view focus as a muscle, you realize you have to treat it with care. You don't scream at a bicep to get bigger. You train it.
Okay, let's talk about that training. Because if willpower is a finite resource, which I definitely feel it is, how do we bypass the need for it?
We have to look at something called cognitive load theory. The source argues that one of the most effective ways to improve focus is to change your environment to reduce the load on your working memory.
This is the environment over willpower argument.
Yes. If you have to rely on willpower to ignore your phone, you're burning energy. You're engaging in what's called inhibitory control. Your brain is actively spending glucose to not look at the phone.
So just having the phone on the desk, even if it's silent and face down,
Is draining your battery. Studies cited in similar research back this up. The mere presence of your smartphone reduces your available cognitive capacity.
wow.
The source suggests visual and auditory hygiene.
Hygiene. That sounds like I need to break out the disinfectant.
It's mental hygiene. It lists specific changes. First, keeping the phone strictly out of reach, not just face down, but physically in another room or a drawer
Yeah.
out of your visual field.
That's a big one. What's the second point?
Reducing visual clutter. And this isn't just about being tidy for the sake of it.
Yeah, explain that. Because I'm that person with the messy desk who says, I know where everything is. Why does a stack of papers matter if I'm looking at my screen?
Because of how your visual cortex works. Your brain doesn't just process what you're focusing on. It is constantly monitoring your peripheral vision for threats or changes. That stack of papers, the coffee cup, the sticky notes,
They're all competing for attention.
they're competing for neural representation. Your brain is practically whispering, there's a paper, there's a cup, there's a wire.
Constantly.
Yes,
Like
it creates a baseline of low-level anxiety, and it consumes processing power. When you reduce that visual clutter, you lower the cognitive load. You're freeing up RAM for the actual task.
That makes perfect sense. It's like closing the 50 tabs I have open in my browser so the computer stops lagging.
That is the perfect metaphor. And the third point is just using soft background sounds, or silence, to do the same for your auditory processing. The whole idea is to remove the friction so that focus becomes the path of least resistance.
Okay, so we've cleaned the desk, we've hidden the phone, we've lowered the cognitive load, but now we have to actually do the work. And this is where I feel like modern work culture just fights us
Yeah.
because we are obsessed with multitasking.
Oh, wait, we wear like a badge of honor.
I do. I feel like a wizard when I'm juggling things. I'm replying to a Slack message while listening to a Zoom call and editing a document. It feels incredibly productive.
It feels productive, and that is the trap. The source is very, very firm on this. Multitasking is a biological impossibility for high-level tasks.
But I'm doing it. I mean, I am doing three things at
Look,
once.
you're task switching.
Yeah.
You're rapidly toggling between tasks. And this introduces a concept I really want to dig into called attentional residue.
Attentional residue. That sounds gross, like mental slime.
It kind of is. It's a term from a business professor, Sophie Leroy. Basically, when you switch from task A, say the email, to task B, the document, your attention doesn't switch instantly and cleanly.
Okay.
A residue of your attention remains stuck thinking about the email.
So part of my brain is still drafting that reply while I'm trying to write the report.
Exactly. You are effectively working with a dimmer brain. You have fewer cognitive resources available for the new task, and the more you switch, the more that residue builds up.
And I guess that explains why at the end of a day where I felt like a multitasking god, I'm actually just completely drained and the quality of my work is mediocre.
You spent all your energy on the switching cost, the metabolic cost of recalibrating your brain over and over again. You burned the fuel, but you didn't really go anywhere.
So what's the alternative? Single tasking sounds painfully slow.
It feels slow because you aren't getting those rapid-fire dopamine hits from switching all the time. But the source advocates for doing one thing at a time. Even small moments of it prevent that residue buildup.
But let's be real, just do one thing is hard when I have a to-do list a mile long.
It is, which is why the source redefines the duration of focus. This part really stood out to me. We tend to think deep work means locking ourselves away for 4 hours like a monk.
Right. If I can't focus for 4 hours, I shouldn't even bother starting.
But the source says focus doesn't need to be long. Even 10 or 15 minutes of unfragmented, single-task attention is meaningful.
10 minutes. I'm going to push back a little here. 10 minutes feels like nothing. Can you actually get anything done in 10 minutes?
It's not about finishing the project in 10 minutes. It's about overcoming the threshold of resistance. If you tell your brain, we need to focus for 4 hours, the amygdala, your fear center, it just lights up.
It's too big of a mountain to climb.
It perceives a threat. It says, no way, that's too much pain. But if you say, I'm just going to focus for 15 minutes, that's manageable. It lowers the stakes, and usually once you start, you keep going.
It's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. Knowing a break is coming helps the mind relax and stay present. It reduces the pressure. But we have to talk about what that break looks like, because this leads to the most critical relationship in the whole text, the connection between focus and rest.
I feel like we usually treat rest as a reward. Like, if I suffer enough through this work, then I am allowed to stop.
And the source flips that completely on its head. It argues that rest helps focus more than effort does. The quote that jumped out at me was, trying harder is not always the answer.
Which goes against everything we're taught in school or sports. Push through it.
But look at the biology. If the brain is depleted of glucose, if your neurons are fatigued, effort just creates frustration. You can't force a tired muscle to lift a heavy weight.
Right.
The source says sleep, quiet moments, gentle activities. These are prerequisites for focus, not rewards for it.
So rest isn't the prize. Rest is the fuel.
A rested mind finds focus naturally. A tired mind breeds distraction because it just lacks the inhibition control to stop the wandering.
I love that reframing, but I want to circle back to something you mentioned at the very beginning, kindness. We've covered the biology, the environment, the residue, but you said kindness was a functional part of this system.
This is the gentle mindset. Because even if you rest and you clean your desk and you hide your phone, your mind will wander. The default mode network will kick in.
It's inevitable.
The question is, how do you react when it happens?
Usually, I get angry. I think, come on, stop wasting time. You're being lazy.
That reaction, that judgment, is a secondary distraction. Now you have the original distraction plus a layer of negative emotion. You are effectively doubling your cognitive load.
So by getting mad at myself for getting distracted, I'm actually making it harder to get back to work.
You're digging the hole deeper. The source suggests a no-judgment rule. When you notice you've wandered, you just gently bring the mind back.
That sounds a lot like meditation advice.
It is, essentially, but applied to work. The source suggests we should reframe the return. Instead of seeing the distraction as a failure, you view the act of returning to the task as a repetition. That is the moment the muscle gets stronger.
Oh, I like that. The win isn't never getting distracted. The win is the moment you return.
Exactly. Every time you catch yourself wandering and gently, without anger, bring your attention back to the report. You've just done a rep. That is how you build the skill.
So kindness isn't just about feeling warm and fuzzy. It's about efficiency. It's about not wasting energy on self-criticism so you can use that energy for the task itself.
That is the core argument. The source actually calls choosing focus an act of kindness toward yourself.
Can we unpack that? Because usually focus feels like a chore, not a gift.
Well, think about the alternative state. Scattered attention, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, rushing. That constant low-level panic of multitasking, that is a very stressful way to live, right?
It is. It's exhausting.
When you create a space for focus, calm, steady monotasking, you are creating a sanctuary for your brain. You aren't trying to control your mind with an iron fist. You're caring for it by giving it one single thing to do.
That's profound. It changes focus from a disciplinary measure into a form of self-care.
It transforms the entire experience. The text says focus doesn't need to be intense. It can be soft, steady, and calm.
Soft, steady, and calm. That is a very different vibe from the crush-it productivity advice we usually get.
And honestly, in an economy that thrives on stealing your attention, simply slowing down is a radical act.
So let's bring this all down to earth for everyone listening. We've covered a lot of ground, from the default mode network to attentional residue. What's the immediate application?
It starts with the environment. I mean, respect your cognitive load. Change your space so you don't have to fight it. Hide the phone, clear the visual clutter. Don't make your brain process junk.
And stop the multitasking. It's a lie. It's just slime building up in your brain. Do one thing, even if it's just for 10 minutes.
And embrace those short bursts. Lower the threshold. 10 minutes of real focus is so much better than an hour of scattered, frustrated effort.
And finally, the mindset. Be kind. When your mind wanders, and it will just gently bring it back, that return is the victory.
It's about reclaiming your own attention, not by force, but by creating the right conditions for it to thrive.
I want to leave everyone with a thought to mull over today. We talked about how focus is an act of kindness, but I want to flip that.
Yeah.
If attention is a muscle, we are currently living in a gym that's designed to make that muscle atrophy. Every app, every notification, every breaking news banner is designed to monetize your distraction.
That is the attention economy.
So the question is, when you let the noise win, who are you actually serving? Are you serving yourself, or are you serving the algorithm?
That's a powerful question.
Maybe the most radical, rebellious thing you can do today isn't to protest or shout. Maybe it's just to close the tabs, put the phone in a drawer, and give yourself permission to do one single thing for just 10 minutes.
Reclaim your time.
Exactly. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time. Okay, let's start today with a bit of a confession. I want you to think about the last time you ran into a friend, or maybe a colleague you haven't seen in a while. You ask them that standard question, how are you? And they sigh, look you right in the eye and say, I am just so busy.
It's the new I'm fine, isn't it? It's almost the default greeting now.
It really is.
Yeah.
But here's the darker question I want to ask. When you say it, when you tell people how swamped you are, be honest. Does a small part of you feel, I don't know, good about it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's some weird badge of honor?
It validates us. We live in this culture that has completely convinced us that success is a very specific equation.
Right.
More hours, plus more tasks, plus more effort equals better results. And the implication is always that if you aren't totally exhausted, you're obviously not trying hard enough.
That is the whole hustle culture trap right there. This idea that burnout is just, the price you pay. But today, we are looking at a stack of research that suggests that equation isn't just a little bit off. It might be completely backwards.
Right.
We're diving into a text titled, Why Doing Less Often Leads to Better Results. And I have to say, reading this felt like a relief, but it also felt a little dangerous.
Dangerous how? That's an interesting word for it.
Well, it just challenges the way most of us operate. It suggests that doing too much is actually the cause of our failure, not the solution. It makes you look back and wonder if all that grinding was just a waste of time.
And that is the core premise. It's a really tough pill to swallow. The source argues that overloading your day doesn't just make you tired.
Which is obvious.
Yeah, that part we know. It says it leads to actual confusion, stress, and, objectively poor outcomes. The argument is that busyness literally makes you worse at your job.
So just to be clear from the start, this isn't a deep dive about, self-care in the sense of taking a spa day because you deserve it.
No, not at all. This is about performance strategy.
A strategic pivot.
Precisely. The mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the mechanics, the neuroscience and psychology of it, of why our brains just plain function better with less input. We want to see how slowing down isn't about laziness, it's about being more effective.
Okay, I want to get into the nuts and bolts
Okay.
because do less sounds great, but in the real world, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
The source starts by identifying this villain in our daily lives. It calls it mental noise.
Mental noise is such a fantastic term for this. I mean, think about a typical day for you.
Yeah.
Your schedule is just stuff. You have tasks, you have messages pinging every few minutes, family stuff, the news. The source describes your mind in that state as just noisy.
It feels like static or like a swarm of bees in your head.
It's actually worse than static because static is consistent. It's kinetic. Your thoughts are literally jumping from one thing to another without ever really landing on anything.
Right.
So in that state, your brain never actually settles on one problem. It just skims the surface of like 20 different things.
It's like having 50 browser tabs open in your brain. You get that feeling where the computer fan starts whirring like a jet engine, and there's music playing from some tab you can't even find.
That's the perfect analogy. And just think about the performance of that computer. It slows down, it crashes. The source points out the human version of that. It says even simple decisions can feel heavy. When you have that much noise, you can work a 12-hour day and your satisfaction is just rock bottom. You feel like you're running through mud.
I know that feeling so well. And my reaction usually is to just push harder.
Wow.
I think, okay, I just need to grind through this. I tell myself I need to answer more emails to clear the deck so I can finally think. But the text says that's the wrong move.
It is the worst move you can make. It makes this really crucial distinction. It says the problem isn't a lack of effort. You're trying hard enough.
Right.
The problem is too much input. You are trying to pour a gallon of water into a pint glass. Pushing harder just makes a bigger mess.
That's a huge perspective shift.
Yeah.
It's not a discipline failure. It's an input failure.
Exactly.
Right.
And the only way to fix an input failure is to, well, restrict the input. The source is very blunt about this. Reducing the number of tasks is the only way to reduce mental pressure. You can't outwork the noise. You have to silence it by taking things away.
Okay, so let's say we do that. We close some of the tabs. What happens then? Because the text moves into what I'm thinking of as the physics of focus. It talks about attention, almost like it's a physical thing that takes up space.
It does, and this is where the science gets really cool. The one line that stood out to me was, focus is not something we can force. It appears when the mind has space.
But we've all tried to force it, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting there staring at a blinking cursor, just demanding your brain to come up with something brilliant.
And it almost never works.
No.
And that usually leads to what the text calls thin and weak attention. This is a really key concept. If you are trying to focus on a bunch of things at once, or even just switching back and forth, your attention gets spread so thin it basically loses all its power.
Hold on, let's pause there. Because the modern workplace pretty much demands constant task switching. I'm writing a report, but I have to check email and then someone comes to my desk. Is that really destroying my focus, or am I just, multitasking?
You're experiencing something researchers call the switching cost, or attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of gross.
It is a little gross, yeah. The idea is that when you switch from, say, task A, your report, to task B, the email, your brain doesn't just snap over instantly.
Yeah.
A big part of your cognitive processing is still stuck on task A. So you're reading the email, but part of your brain is still chewing on the report. You're literally not all there for the new task.
So every time I switch tabs, I'm leaving a little piece of my brain behind.
That's it, exactly. And if you do that 20 times an hour, you have no brain left for what's in front of you. The source argues that when you do less, you eliminate that residue. You actually allow for deep focus.
And this is where it gets super compelling for anyone who loves productivity metrics. There's a formula in the source I just love. It says, 1 focused hour can be more effective than many distracted hours.
That is the key. For anyone who loves efficiency, that's the whole game. We track hours like they're all the same. I worked an 8-hour day, but an hour is not a fixed unit of value.
Right.
1 hour of deep, quiet, singular focus that can produce more actual value than 8 hours of distracted, noisy, busy work.
It's quality over quantity, but for time itself. The benefits listed are pretty convincing. Work gets easier, mistakes go down, creativity goes up.
And that makes total sense, doesn't it? If you're not fighting the noise, if you're not fighting the residue from the last 10 things you did, your brain has the bandwidth to actually be creative. You aren't just processing tasks, you're thinking about them.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Deep focus is great, but our lives demand constant decision-making. Answer this, decide on that. Where should we go for lunch? The Force brings up a concept that explains why we feel so wiped out by 2 p.m.
You're talking about decision fatigue. This is a very real economic reality for your brain.
Yeah, the text puts it so simply, every decision uses energy.
And here's the scary part. The brain doesn't really distinguish between important and unimportant decisions nearly as well as we think it does. So whether you're deciding on a multi-million-dollar strategy or what font to use in an email, every single choice burns a little bit of mental fuel.
So if your day is just chaotic and unstructured, you're burning through all your fuel, just figuring out the logistics of how to live, you're exhausted before you even get to the real work.
Precisely. You're spending all your energy on the menu, not the meal. You just deplete your glucose, your willpower, your executive function, just trying to navigate the chaos.
So what's the fix then? How do we stop that fuel leak? Because I can't just stop making decisions.
The Source is a big advocate for simple routines. Now, I know the word routine sounds boring, it sounds restrictive.
A little bit.
But the Source argues routines are powerful because they remove small choices. Okay. So if I always check my email at 9 a.m., I don't have to spend energy deciding if I should check it. I just do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you eat the same thing for breakfast, or have a set way you start a meeting, it creates what it calls a calm structure. By automating those little things, you save your best mental energy for what actually matters. The text literally says, less decision-making often leads to better decisions.
I love that term, calm structure. It doesn't sound like it's there to bind you, it's there to support you. It sounds a lot better than chaotic scramble, which is my usual mode. But speaking of scrambling, we have to talk about speed. Because the text takes a really hard line against our obsession with doing everything fast.
It does. It acknowledges that, our culture celebrates speed. We want everything yesterday, the whole move fast and break things idea.
Right.
But the Source warns us that fast progress is not always real progress.
That's a heavy statement. Fast progress is not always real progress. Because in my head, speed is progress. If I'm moving fast, I'm winning. What does that even mean? Well, think of it like a vector. If you're going 100 miles an hour, but you're just slightly off course, or you're making mistakes that you can't even see because everything's a blur, are you actually making progress?
No, I'm just getting to the wrong place faster.
Exactly. The text argues that when you move too quickly, you're just prone to stress and errors. You might finish something in record time, but if it's full of mistakes or you burned out your team, you're just going to have to go back and fix it all later.
So it's negative progress.
It's actually slower in the long run. It's the classic tortoise and the hare situation, but for the modern workplace. The Source advocates for slow, steady progress. It's more sustainable. When we slow down, we move with intention. We actually understand the work we're doing.
There's a line in here that says, we learn from our experience instead of rushing past it. That really hit me. How often do we finish something and immediately just sprint to the next thing without ever processing what we just learned?
All the time. And that's what stops us from growing. If you rush past the experience, you don't absorb the lesson. Consistency is so much more important than speed.
Okay, so we've covered focus, decision fatigue, speed. Now let's get to the thing we all feel guilty about. The thing we think is the opposite of work. Rest.
This is one of my favorite parts of the analysis because it completely reframes what rest even is. It stops treating rest as just idle time.
Yeah, as the absence of productivity.
And it starts treating it as a biological requirement for performance.
Right, because my default is, if I'm resting, I'm being lazy. But the Source says rest is part of productivity.
It's an active process. The text explains that rest is when the brain actually processes information, when it solves problems, and when it recovers.
Is this related to what neuroscientists call the default mode network?
It is, essentially. When you stop focusing, when you go for a walk or do the dishes or just stare out the window, your brain doesn't switch off, it switches gears. It activates that network.
And it starts connecting dots in the background.
Yes. Consolidating memories. The text says, without rest, effort loses its power.
It's like when you're trying so hard to remember a name and you can't get it. It's on the tip of your tongue. You struggle and struggle. Then you give up, go take a shower, and boom, it just pops into your head.
That's the aha moment, exactly. And it only happens when the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's trying hard, quiets down. The Source is explicit that good ideas show up when we're relaxed, not when we're pushing.
So sitting on the couch or going for a walk isn't wasting time. It's background processing.
It is essential maintenance. If you skip it, you lose that processing power. You lose the ability to connect different ideas. You just become a task doer, not a problem solver.
I feel like I need to print that out. Do not disturb. I am currently background processing.
It's a valid work status, but you have to really mean it. You can't be resting while also scrolling through emails on your phone.
Right, that's just different noise.
It has to be a true disconnection.
That's a crucial point. So let's connect this back to the output. If we do less, rest more, slow down. The fear is the work will suffer. That I'll produce less. Does the work actually get better?
The source argues the complete opposite. It's all about quality over quantity. When you focus on fewer tasks, you can give each one more care.
Which makes sense. If I have 3 things to do today instead of 30, I can actually pay attention to the details.
You notice things. You make thoughtful choices. The text notes that this leads to results that feel more satisfying, more lasting. And just as important, it reduces that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. You're not just churning out widgets, you're crafting something.
But here's the big hurdle, and I think this is the biggest one for people listening. It's not that they don't want to do this. It's the fear, the FOMO, the fear that if I don't do everything, if I say no, I'm failing, or I'll fall behind. The source calls this the habit of believing we must do everything.
This is the big psychological barrier. We've all been conditioned to think that saying no is a sign of weakness or a lost opportunity. But the expert voice in this text gives us a really stark reality check.
Which is,
No one can do everything well.
it's a hard truth. It hurts a little bit to hear.
It does, but once you accept it, it becomes a tool. The text says, choosing what not to do is as important as choosing what to do. That is the definition of strategy. Strategy is about selection. It's about making trade-offs.
So every time we say yes to something unimportant, we are implicitly saying no to something that actually matters, just because we run out of time and energy.
That's the opportunity cost, exactly. If you try to carry everything, you can't carry the important things well. You end up dropping the ball on what matters because your hands are full of stuff that doesn't.
I really like the idea that letting go creates freedom. It's not about giving up. It's about freeing up your energy to invest it where it will have a real impact.
Letting go is how you protect the quality of what's left. It's how you honor the work you do choose to do.
So we're reframing doing less. It's not a failure. What's the text call it?
A gentle strategy. I really like that phrase. It's a calm way forward. By simplifying, we create room for focus, for creativity, and for calm.
And the result isn't just that we feel better, which is huge. It's that the actual results get better because our attention isn't split 100 different ways.
Right. Sometimes the fastest way to move forward is to slow down.
So let's bring this all together for everyone listening. We started with the noise of too much, that brain fog from just being overloaded.
And we move to the physics of focus, understanding that attention needs space and that task switching has a huge cognitive tax, that attention residue.
We talked about how simple routines can save our best energy by cutting down on decision fatigue. Basically, put the boring stuff on autopilot.
Exactly. Then we debunked the need for speed, swapping it for slow, steady progress, and we reclaimed rest as a critical part of the work itself, not the opposite of it.
And finally, we landed on the strategy of selection, the power of letting go.
It's a whole system for, regaining control of your own brain.
So what does this mean for you, the listener? You might be prepping for a meeting right now or stuck in traffic trying to survive a busy week. Why does this all matter at this very moment?
It matters because we live in an age of infinite input. There will always be more emails, more news, more requests for your time. If your strategy is just do more, you will eventually break. To really understand things, to be truly effective, you have to stop trying to consume everything at once.
You have to build that fence around your attention.
You do. You have to value your own mental energy enough to protect it, because no one else is going to do it for you.
Here is a thought to leave you with. We talked about that metric. One focused hour is worth more than many distracted hours.
It's the golden rule of this whole philosophy.
If that's true, and the source makes a very compelling case that it is, I want you to ask yourself, what is the one focused hour in your life right now that would be worth more than a whole day of just being busy? Is it finishing that one project that's been hanging over you? Is it finally planning out your year? Is it just sitting and thinking about a problem without your phone in your hand?
That's the real question, isn't it? If you could trade a whole day of frantic noise for just 1 hour of true brilliance, what would you do with that hour?
Something to think about while you practice your new background processing routine.
Indeed. Go find your calm structure.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
You know the scene. I mean, I don't even have to tell you the name of the movie. You already know the scene I'm talking about.
I have a feeling I know exactly where this is going.
The hero is at rock bottom. They've lost the big game. The love interest has walked out. The dojo has been dishonored. It's, raining against the window pane. It's grim. And then you hear that first guitar riff.
The drums kick in.
Exactly. The drums kick in. And suddenly, we are in the montage. We see them waking up at 4 a.m. They're drinking raw eggs, which, by the way, is gross and medically inadvisable.
It really is.
They're sprinting up snow-covered mountains. They're lifting logs that just defy physics.
It is 3 minutes of pure, unadulterated intensity.
And that's the promise, right? 3 minutes of suffering, and then boom, you're a champion. You're transformed.
The music swells, the credits roll, it is incredible cinema, it gets the blood pumping, it makes you want to run through a brick wall.
It makes for amazing cinema. But here is the problem, and this is what we're digging into today. I think deep down, we try to edit our actual lives, like that movie.
Oh, for sure.
We think, okay, I want to learn Spanish, or I want to get six-pack abs. And we assume the way to get there is the montage. We think we need to go 100 miles per hour immediately. We think we need intensity.
And that is exactly where most of us fall off the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Because while intensity looks great on a movie screen, the source material we're looking at today argues that it's actually a terrible strategy for real human beings.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We are stripping down this fascinating piece of writing titled Why Consistency Beats Intensity. And look, I know consistency sounds like maybe the most unsexy word in the English language.
It's not exactly a word you put on a movie poster. The fast and the consistent.
The fast and the moderately reliable, it just doesn't sell tickets. But honestly, reading through this, I felt personally attacked. This text explains every failed New Year's resolution I've ever had.
It's a reality check. The mission today is to deconstruct why we are so addicted to that high-octane intensity, why it almost biologically sets us up to fail, and how we can switch to a strategy that the source calls quiet. It's a strategy that is calmer, slower, but, and this is the key, it actually works.
Quiet but works. I want to live there.
Wow.
So let's unpack this. The source material starts by admitting something important, which I really appreciate.
What's that?
Intensity feels good. We don't just do it because we think we have to. We do it because we like the high.
We do. The text describes intensity as starting with strong motivation. It's a very specific emotional state. You know that feeling, usually late on a Sunday night.
Oh, the Sunday scaries transform into Superman Sunday.
Right. You're sitting there, you're mapping out the week. You decide, I'm going to wake up 2 hours early every day. I'm going to meal prep organic lunches. I'm going to read a book a week and learn to code.
And in that moment, just in your head, you feel powerful.
You feel like you've already achieved it just by planning it.
It's seductive. You get the dopamine hit of being a superhero before you've even lifted a finger. It feels like you're fixing your life.
But the source points out the fatal flaw in this. Intensity relies entirely on that emotion. It relies on you feeling up. And the problem with emotions, even the really positive ones like high-octane motivation, is that they're temporary.
They're weather. They pass.
They rarely last. The text outlines the cycle pretty clearly. You have a few days, maybe a week if you're lucky, where you just ride that wave of excitement.
You do in the montage.
You do in the montage. You're waking up early, but then inevitably, reality sets in.
Life happens. Your boss yells at you, the car breaks down, or honestly, you're just tired because you've been waking up at 4 a.m.
Exactly. Life gets busy.
Yeah.
Your energy drops. And suddenly, that intense routine you built, which requires 100% of your energy, it breaks. You miss a day.
And this is a part of the text that really hit home for me. It's not just that the routine breaks, it's the psychological cost of the break. The source explicitly mentions the arrival of guilt.
Yes. This is the mechanism of failure. When you rely on intensity, you are setting the bar impossibly high. The text says intensity asks for too much too quickly. So when you inevitably miss a step, because you are a human being and not a robot, you don't just feel like you missed a Tuesday, you feel like you failed. The guilt sets in.
And I've felt this. You miss the gym once, and you think, well, I ruined the streak, I'm a failure, I might as well eat this entire pizza.
The might as well effect. It's paralyzing.
Yeah.
Once the guilt appears, the progress just stops.
Yeah.
Intensity creates this sort of binary world.
Yeah.
You are either 100% on, crushing it, or you are 0% off, failing. There's no middle ground.
That is such a crucial insight. Intensity feels like power, but it's actually fragile. It's like a glass cannon in a video game. It hits hard, but if you tap it the wrong way, it just shatters.
Precisely.
Ah.
So the source proposes the alternative, consistency. But the way it describes consistency is really interesting. It uses the word calm.
Calm. See, that's where I get skeptical. Because
Yeah.
calm doesn't sound like winning. Calm sounds like settling.
Right.
It sounds like something you tell people who can't handle heat.
And that's the cultural conditioning talking. We are trained to think that effort must hurt to count. But the text says consistency does not need motivation every day.
Okay, pause there. Does not need motivation. That sounds like a superpower, because usually I spend half my energy just trying to get motivated to do the thing.
Well, think about it. If you rely on consistency, you stop trying to hype yourself up. You stop waiting for the montage music.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency relies on habits, not emotions. It's mechanical. The text says consistency grows slowly, but it grows deeply.
Grows deeply. I like that image. It's less like a firework and more like an oak tree.
That's a great analogy. A firework is intense. It's bright, loud, exciting. Everyone looks at it, and then 3 seconds later, it's just ash.
Yeah.
An oak tree is boring. You can stare at it all day, and you won't see it move. It's not exciting. Give it 5 years, 10 years, it's immovable. It has roots.
So if we're moving away from the emotional high of intensity, the fireworks, what are we replacing it with? The source actually gets into the biology of this, right? It's not just philosophy. There's a brain element here.
Right. This is where it gets fascinating. The source dives into how the human brain actually learns. And the key word here isn't inspiration or willpower. It's repetition.
So walk us through the neuroscience here. Why does the brain care about repetition more than intensity?
Well, the text explains that repeated actions create neural pathways. But let's visualize this. I want you to imagine a really dense, overgrown jungle.
Okay, I'm in the jungle. I've got a machete in my hand. It's humid.
Perfect. Now imagine you need to create a path. If you sprint through that forest once with maximum intensity, screaming, hacking away, running as fast as you can,
Yeah,
you might make a dent.
right.
You might chop down a few vines, you make a lot of noise, you sweat, you work incredibly hard, but then you go home and you don't come back for a month. What happens to that trail?
Oh, the jungle grows back. In like a week, nature takes it back.
Exactly. The weeds take over. The path is gone. The brain is efficient. If you don't use a pathway, it prunes it. It says, oh, that was a one-time thing. Delete. It's looking to save energy.
But if I walk that path every single day,
Even if you walk slowly, even if you're just shuffling along in your pajamas, if you walk it every day, you beat down the grass, then you pack down the dirt, eventually the roots stop tripping you up.
and it becomes a path.
It becomes a path. The source says, what once felt difficult becomes normal.
That is the holy grail, right? We want the hard stuff to feel normal. We want going to the gym or studying Spanish to feel as automatic as brushing our teeth.
And that only happens through repetition. The brain adapts to what you do daily, not what you do occasionally with great effort. That's why the text argues that consistency works better than short bursts. The bursts just don't last long enough to do that physical rewiring work in the brain.
It's interesting because when you frame it that way, intensity seems almost inefficient. Like you're spending a huge amount of metabolic energy for very little biological return.
It is inefficient in the long run. And it's also high cost in terms of stress.
The source makes a big point about the relationship between our goals and pressure.
Oh, yeah. Intense goals create pressure. I feel that in my chest just hearing it.
And pressure leads to stress. And what does stress do biologically? It triggers cortisol. It triggers fight or flight. It makes us want to escape the very thing we're trying to do.
Yeah.
If your goal is to write the next great American novel in 30 days, every time you sit at the computer, you feel the weight of that deadline just crushing you. It's miserable.
And eventually you just stop sitting at the computer because your brain is screaming, run away, this is painful. I do this all the time. I procrastinate because the task feels too heavy.
Exactly. The procrastination is a defense mechanism against the pressure. But consistency, the source says it removes pressure.
How? I mean, how do you remove pressure when you still have a goal? You still want to write the book.
By shifting the definition of the goal. In a consistent model, the goal isn't write the novel today. The goal is show up. Just show up, even in a small way. That feels like letting yourself off the hook, though, doesn't it? If I just say, my goal is to put on my running shoes, aren't I cheating? Aren't I just lowering the bar to the floor?
You are lowering the bar to the floor, yes. But that's strategic. If the goal is just to open the document and write one sentence, the pressure is 0. You
Okay.
can do that on a bad day. You can do that when you have the flu. You can do that when you're depressed. And because the pressure is gone, the habit becomes sustainable.
Sustainable even during difficult times, as the text says.
Right. And we all have difficult times.
Hmm.
If your strategy requires you to be at 100% capacity to work, your strategy is broken
Yeah.
because nobody is at 100% forever. Consistency is designed for the days when you're at 20%.
I think that's the part that is hardest to accept, though, because when you're doing that 20% work, when you're just showing up and doing the small thing, it feels invisible. It feels like nothing is happening.
You've hit on the invisible phase. The source addresses this directly. It says, one challenge with consistency is that results appear slowly.
Yeah. In the beginning, it looks like nothing is changing. You're doing the small habit, you're eating the salad, you're writing the paragraph, and you look in the mirror or check your bank account, and nothing. 0.
It's the valley of disappointment.
Is that what we're calling it?
That's what it feels like. You are putting in the effort, but the feedback loop is delayed. And that is where most people quit. Because we're conditioned by that movie montage to want the immediate transformation.
We want the training sequence to be over so we can win the fight.
But the source says something is happening, even if we can't see it yet. It says change is happening quietly. It says consistency works behind the scenes. Skills are improving. The neural pathways are getting packed down.
Right.
But most importantly, something psychological is shifting. Confidence is growing.
Now, this definition of confidence really stood out to me in the reading. Usually when we talk to people about confidence, we think of bravado, pumping your chest, standing in front of the mirror saying, I am a tiger.
Right, the fake it till you make it style.
Yeah.
High energy. But the text defines confidence differently. It says confidence grows from reliability.
Every small action is a promise kept.
That's the line. Every small action is a promise kept.
Yeah.
Think about what that does to your relationship with yourself. If you set a massive, intense goal, I will run 10 miles today, and you quit at mile 3 because you're exhausted, you are breaking a promise to yourself. You are teaching your brain, I am a liar. I cannot trust my own word.
Oof. Yeah. That's dark, but it's true. That's the guilt again. You start to see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through.
But if you set a small, consistent goal, I will do 5 minutes of stretching, and you do it. You kept a promise. You build what the text calls self-trust.
And calm confidence.
Calm confidence, knowing that you will show up again tomorrow. It's not about thinking you're the greatest athlete in the world. It's about knowing you are reliable. That is a much sturdier foundation than hype.
It's a shift from, I hope I can do this, to, I know I will do this because I always do.
Exactly. And that self-trust is what carries you through the invisible phase. You don't need the external result immediately because you have the internal validation of keeping your promise. You feel good about yourself simply because you showed up.
Now, there's another enemy of intensity that we haven't touched on yet, but the text makes a big deal of it. Rest.
Ah, yes. The relationship with rest.
Intensity seems to hate rest. If you're in the montage, you don't sleep, you don't take a break. Rest is for the weak.
Intensity fears rest because intensity is fragile. If you stop the momentum of a spinning top, what happens? It falls over. The whole thing collapses. But the source says consistency respects rest.
How so? Because consistency sounds like never stopping. It sounds like a treadmill you can't get off.
Not if you look at the time horizon. Consistency operates on a longer timeline. If your timeline is forever or the next 10 years, then missing one day is statistically irrelevant. It's a blip. It's a rounding error.
The text mentions the one-day rule, effectively.
It says missing one day does not destroy progress. If you are intense, missing a day ruins the streak. You know those apps that track your streak?
Oh, I live in fear of the owl on my language app. If I lose my streak, I feel like I've lost everything.
Right, and that's the danger of intensity gamification. It ruins the perfection. But if you are consistent, you just return.
Returning gently. That's the phrase used. I love that phrasing. It sounds so much nicer than grinding back.
Yes. Returning gently keeps the habit alive. This is so important. It removes the fear. If you miss a day, you don't beat yourself up. You don't spiral into shame.
You don't eat the whole pizza.
You don't eat the whole pizza. You just get back to it the next day.
It's forgiving.
It is.
Yeah.
And because it's forgiving, you're less likely to quit altogether.
Yeah.
It turns a failure into just a pause. It stops the shame spiral before it starts.
It really does sound like a gentle path to real results, which is how the source describes it. But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
I have to speak for the part of me that wants to be a hero. Is it boring?
Okay, straight answer. I appreciate that.
The source admits it. It says, consistency is not exciting. It is simple. We have to be honest about that. If you are looking for thrills, for that adrenaline rush of crushing it, consistency will feel boring. It will feel mundane. But the text argues, and that is why it works. The excitement is the distraction. The boredom is where the work gets done. It says small steps lead to change, not through force, but through patience.
We want to force the result. We want to grab the result by the throat and drag it into existence.
But you can't force neural pathways. You can't force biological adaptation. You can only coax it through patience. You can't yell a plant into growing faster.
In the long run, consistency always wins. That's the final verdict.
It's the tortoise and the hare. It's the oldest cliche in the book because it's biologically true. The hare burns out. The hare gets distracted. The hare relies on intensity.
And the tortoise just keeps stepping.
The tortoise just keeps stepping.
So if we look at this for our listener, the learner who is probably juggling a job, maybe family, hobbies, and trying to learn something new, the message is pretty liberating.
It's incredibly liberating. It means you can stop trying to overhaul your entire life on a Monday morning. You don't need a radical transformation. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. unless you really, really want to.
You just need to pick something small.
Something so small it feels almost too easy, ridiculously easy, and then do it again tomorrow and the day after.
And if you miss a day,
you forgive yourself instantly and you do it the day after that. No drama, no guilt.
I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. The removal of the drama. We make self-improvement so dramatic. We make it this battle between good and evil, laziness and productivity. And this text is saying, hey, put down the sword. Just do the small thing.
Exactly. Lower the stakes, lower the pressure, raise the consistency. That's the formula.
It's funny. We started talking about movie montages.
Yeah.
And I realize now that a movie about consistency would be the worst movie ever made.
It would be absolutely unwatchable.
It would just be a 2-hour shot of a guy reading 2 pages of a book every night for a year. No music, just page turning.
The critics would hate it. It'd get 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. But the guy in the movie, by the end, he's actually read the books. He's actually learned the language. He's actually changed.
Right.
The montage hero usually ends up back on the couch a month later with a pulled muscle and a sense of failure.
That is the reality check we all needed.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into why consistency beats intensity, let's bring it back to you, the listener. We've talked about neural pathways, about the trap of the emotional high and the power of the quiet strategy.
The bottom line is that you have a choice between feeling impressive for a week or actually becoming impressive over a year.
I love that. And here's a thought to leave you with, something to mull over as you go about your day. We talked about how every small action is a promise kept to yourself. So here is the question. What is one small, boring promise you are willing to make to yourself today? Not a grand declaration, not a life overhaul. Just a tiny, boring promise that matters more than 1,000 intense intentions.
Because that small promise is the one you'll actually keep.
Exactly. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
I want you to picture a scenario. I think we've all been in it. It's, 11:30 at night. The house is finally quiet. You're in bed trying to wind down.
Oh, I know this feeling.
And suddenly, your brain decides it's the perfect time to open the financial anxiety folder.
The universal late-night panic. It is fascinating how that happens. You're trying to sleep and your mind just goes, hey, remember that bill? Remember inflation?
Exactly. And it's not just one thought. It's a whole highlight reel. Did I pay the credit card?
Yeah.
Can I actually afford that trip next month? Is my savings account looking a little, well, sad compared to everyone else's on Instagram?
It's heavy. That is the word I always come back to with money. Physically, money is just, paper or pixels on a screen. It has zero mass. But psychologically...
Oh, it's the heaviest thing we carry.
It is. And for most of us, the solution to that heaviness feels like it has to be complex. We think if the problem is heavy, the solution must be heavy lifting.
Right. We assume we need spreadsheets with 19 tabs and investment strategies that require a degree to understand.
And this ironclad, painful discipline.
Yes. But today, We are pivoting hard. We are looking at a source that takes the absolute opposite approach.
It really is a radical shift, especially now. We're doing a deep dive into a text called Calm Life, Money, Simplicity, and Peace. And what's immediately fascinating here is the format of the source itself.
What do you mean?
Well, it's actually written as a gentle, sleep-friendly text. It's designed to be read slowly to help you relax.
Which is so ironic, isn't it? Usually reading about money is better than a double shot of espresso for keeping you awake. If I read a standard finance book before bed, I'm up until 4 a.m. stressing about compound interest.
Exactly. But the mission of this deep dive is to see if we can actually apply that calm philosophy to our wallets. We want to deconstruct this idea that managing money requires high stress, high adrenaline, and high complexity.
So the goal isn't necessarily to become a millionaire overnight.
No, not at all. It's to change the emotional temperature of how we handle our finances.
Moving from that panic and spending roller coaster.
Precisely. To a state of calm awareness. The source argues that you can be good with money without being anxious about money.
I love that. So here's our roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to look at how to manage money without feeling like you're micromanaging every tiny detail. We're going to look at the psychological power of what the source calls slow changes. And finally, we'll explore how simple living isn't about deprivation. It's actually a biological hack to quiet the noise in your brain.
It's about finding peace in the numbers, which, yeah, it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's possible.
Okay, let's unpack this. The first thing that jumped out at me from the source is this concept of redefining control.
Right.
I feel like when people say, I need to get control of my finances, what they usually mean is, I need to punish myself for buying lattes.
That is the common narrative. We equate control with restriction and an extreme complexity. The source explicitly points this out as a myth. It says that people believe they need these complex plans, but that belief itself is a stressor.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Think about it. If you think the barrier to entry for financial health is some complex, perfect system, you'll never start.
It's paralysis.
Yeah,
You look at the mountain of work you think you have to do and you just go back to bed.
exactly. And you stay anxious. So the source proposes an alternative, simple budgeting. But you have to understand the definition here, because budget is such a loaded word.
Oh, for sure.
In this context, it is not about controlling every line item, it is about clarity. The text makes a very important distinction. Simple budgeting is not about limits, it is about clarity.
I really want to drill down on that. Clarity over limits. Because limits feel like a cage. Limits feel like, I can't do this.
Right.
But clarity just feels like turning on the lights in a dark room.
That is the perfect analogy. When the lights are off, you are scared of what you might bump into. That is financial anxiety. When lights are on, you might see a mess, sure, but you aren't scared of the unknown anymore. You just see what is there.
So what does this simple budgeting actually look like? Because we can't just ignore the bills and say, I'm being clear.
No, you can't ignore reality. But the mechanism the source suggests is incredibly stripped down. It essentially asks you to know just 3 things, broadly.
Okay.
First, know generally how much comes in. Second, know generally how much goes out, your rent, food, bills.
Generally.
And third, try not to spend more than you earn.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
That sounds almost too simple. Can you really run a modern life on general ideas? Don't we need to know where every penny goes to be safe?
Well, let's look at the psychology behind that need for exactness. The source argues that you don't need exact numbers to feel safe. You need to know you are within the lanes. I mean, think about the anxiety of micromanagement. If you are stressing over a 10-cent difference in grocery prices or tracking every stick of gum you buy, your cortisol levels are just spiking.
And when cortisol spikes, we get into fight or flight mode.
Correct. And when you are in fight or flight, you make bad long-term decisions. This approach creates stability without that anxiety. It shifts the focus to 2 main questions. Do I have enough for my needs? And am I spending mindfully?
It's the difference between driving a car and obsessively watching the speedometer every single second.
Yes.
Versus just watching the road and flowing with traffic.
That is spot on. If you are staring at the speedometer or the penny perfect budget, you are going to crash or at least have a very stressful drive. This general idea budget allows you to keep your eyes on the road.
You just need to know, am I moving in the right direction?
Right, rather than what is my exact speed down to the decimal point.
Okay, so if we aren't obsessing over the budget spreadsheet, we still need to talk about the spending side. Because money does leave the account. We live in a consumer culture and, well, Buying things is often how we deal with stress.
Right. And this is where the source gets really interesting about the psychology of spending. Again, the definition is key. The source defines spending mindfully not as not spending, but simply as slowing down.
Slowing down. It reminds me of how we eat. If you wolf down a meal while looking at your phone, you don't even taste it.
And you end up eating way more than you needed. Exactly. If you slow down, you actually enjoy it and you naturally regulate. So to help with this, the source provides a specific checklist. 3 questions to ask before you buy.
Okay.
First, do I really need this? Second, will this improve my life?
Those seem pretty standard. I feel like I've heard those before.
They are the basics, but here's the kicker. The third one.
Right.
Can I wait and decide later?
That third one is the game changer for me. Can I wait? Because usually, if I'm honest, the answer is yes.
Always.
But in the moment, it feels like an emergency.
And this leads to what I think is the most profound aha moment in this section. The source suggests a technique involving the pause. Often, when we are trying to save money, we feel like we have to tell ourselves no. And no is a harsh word. It feels like a parent scolding a child.
No. Makes me want to rebel. If I tell myself I can't have the gadget, suddenly I want the gadget 10 times more just to prove I have free will.
Exactly. It triggers a psychological phenomenon called reactance. You push back against the restriction, but the source suggests you don't say no, you say, not now.
Not now.
It sounds so subtle, but the psychological impact is massive. Not now leaves the door open. It validates the desire. It says, yes, that is a nice thing, and you are worthy of nice things, but let's just wait.
It reduces the pressure.
Totally. You aren't denying yourself. You are just managing the timeline.
It takes the emotion out of it. It's not a battle of will anymore. It's just scheduling.
Correct. And usually, if you say not now and walk away, the dopamine rush fades. 20 minutes later or the next morning, you realize you didn't actually want the thing.
You just wanted the dopamine. You wanted the hit, not the item.
Exactly. So not now saves you from the impulse without the pain of deprivation. It's a gentle approach.
I want to move to the next section because this really struck a chord with me. The source talks about safety. And I think if you ask most people what would make you feel safe with money, they'd say $1 million in the bank.
Or 10 million.
Right.
We equate safety with a specific large number. We think the pile of gold protects us from the world.
If I have enough money, nothing bad can touch me.
But the source challenges this completely. It states that feeling safe with money is not about being rich. It is about trust.
Trust in what? The bank? The stock market? Because those things fluctuate.
No, trust in yourself. This is where it connects to the bigger picture of resilience. The source breaks this trust down into 3 pillars. First, trust that you can handle small problems.
Okay.
Second, trust that you can adjust when things change. And third, trust that you don't need to be perfect.
That second one, trust that you can adjust, is so freeing because things will change. The car will break down.
Your rent will go up.
The job market will shift.
Yeah.
But safety isn't preventing those things. It's knowing you can pivot when they happen.
Exactly. If your safety depends on nothing ever going wrong, you will never feel safe, no matter how much money you have. You will always be looking over your shoulder.
Right.
But if your safety is built on the internal knowledge that I can handle small problems and I am adaptable, then you can actually relax.
It's internalizing the safety rather than outsourcing it to your bank balance.
The text talks about treating money calmly, not emotionally. When you trust your own adaptability, money becomes just a tool you use to adjust, rather than a measure of your worth or your survival.
So we have the mindset. Clarity over limits, not now instead of no, and trust instead of just hoarding cash. But we still need to build some of that safety net. So let's talk about saving. Because usually advice on saving is aggressive. It's cut out everything you love, live in a cave, and hustle until you drop.
Grind set culture, it's very prevalent. But the source takes a very different path here. It calls for gentle saving.
Gentle saving. I like the sound of that much better. What does it look like in practice?
It's about small habits. The source gives examples that are notably quiet and simple. Making coffee at home sometimes. Notice it says sometimes, not always.
Not always, okay.
Cooking simple meals. Using what you already have.
Using what you already have. That is such an underrated savings tip. I feel like whenever I have a problem, my first instinct is to buy a solution. Oh, I need to get organized. I have to go buy $100 worth of plastic bins.
When you probably have a box or a drawer that would work just fine, we are conditioned to consume solutions. The strategy here is about speed, or rather the lack of it. The source argues that slow changes are better than fast
Or
ones.
crash diet approach.
Exactly. When we try to overhaul our entire financial life in one weekend, it creates massive stress.
And we all know how crash diets end.
Right.
You starve for a week, and then you eat an entire pizza.
Precisely. The rebound effect. We save aggressively for a month, feel miserable, and then go on a spending spree to soothe the misery. But with the slow strategy, you introduce one small habit. Maybe just the coffee thing.
Right.
You do it until it becomes normal, the source says. One small habit leads to it becoming normal. And when it feels normal, it feels easy.
You're building confidence, not just a bank balance. You're proving to yourself you can change.
There is also a really interesting reframe in the text about why we save. Usually, I think people save out of fear. I need to save in case disaster strikes.
Right. It's defensive. It's fearful.
And fear is a terrible long-term motivator. It keeps your cortisol high. The source suggests reframing the motivation from fear to future comfort.
Future comfort.
You aren't saving to ward off a catastrophe. You are saving so that future you can relax.
That is so much kinder. It's like I'm being nice to the future version of myself.
Mm.
Here you go, future host. Have a relaxing month because I put this money aside for you.
It changes the emotional flavor of the act completely. Saving becomes an act of self-care, not an act of paranoia.
So we have touched on budgeting, spending, and saving. But the source wraps all of this under a broader umbrella. Simple living. Now, I feel like simple living has become a bit of a buzzword.
Oh, yeah.
It brings up images of empty white rooms, one chair, and a single succulent plant.
It can definitely be misinterpreted as minimalism for the sake of aesthetics, or just being trendy. But the source defines simple living very specifically. It isn't about having nothing, it is about having enough. And it explicitly connects this to mental health and peace.
How does buying less connect to mental peace, aside from just having less clutter to trip over?
It's about noise reduction in the brain. The source makes a direct link. Buying less means fewer decisions. And this is crucial because decision fatigue is a real psychological phenomenon.
So every object demands a piece of your attention.
A tiny piece. Well, every time you buy something, you have to research it, compare prices, decide if it's the right color, buy it, maintain it, store it, clean it.
And eventually get rid of it.
It's a lot of cognitive load.
That is so true. Buying a new phone isn't just spending money. It's spending 3 hours reading reviews, worrying if I made the right choice, transferring data. It's a job.
Exactly. Fewer decisions mean less comparing and less pressure. The result, as the source puts it, is a quieter, more comfortable mind. It is about energy conservation.
Energy conservation. I like thinking of my brain energy as a battery. I don't want to waste it on deciding which toaster is the absolute best toaster in the world.
Yes. Every trivial decision burns glucose in the brain. It takes energy. By removing questions like, should I upgrade or should I change this? In theory, you conserve that energy for things that actually matter. Your work, your family, your passion.
You step off the treadmill.
The treadmill of a constant optimization.
The source also mentions calm routines as part of this simple living. Simple meals, familiar clothes, predictable days. Now I have to play the critic again. To some people, predictable days might sound boring.
Sure.
Where's the excitement? Where's the spontaneity?
That's a valid concern. But the counter-argument is that your infrastructure should be boring so your life can be exciting.
Boring infrastructure. I like that.
If your infrastructure, your money, your food, your schedule is chaotic, you spend all your energy managing the chaos, you have nothing left for creativity. The expert insight here is about the biological signal these routines send. The source emphasizes that these routines tell the mind, you are safe.
You are safe.
Think about your amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain. It scans for change, because change often meant danger in our evolutionary history. When your environment is predictable, when you know what you're eating, you know what you're wearing, your amygdala can stand down.
It can relax.
The body relaxes. If everything is constantly new and changing, your brain is constantly on high alert, scanning for threats.
So the boring routine is actually a safety blanket for your nervous system.
Precisely. Simple living, in this context, is a biological mechanism for peace. It lowers your baseline stress level.
That is fascinating. So we aren't just saving money by not buying the new thing. We are saving our nervous systems from the stress of the new.
We are opting out of the constant stimulation loop.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom out, we're looking at a philosophy that asks us to stop fighting with our money.
We are stopping the war. The synthesis of this calm life philosophy is that Money doesn't need strict rules. It doesn't need self-punishment. And it doesn't need perfection. It doesn't require you to be a Wall Street wizard.
What does it require?
Awareness, patience, and kindness toward yourself.
And it grows slowly. That was a big takeaway for me. We don't have to fix it all today. A calm life grows through gentle saving and mindful spending.
And the ultimate payoff isn't just a number in an account, it's the feeling. When money feels calm, life feels lighter. And as the source says, when life feels lighter, rest comes more easily.
I think we could all use a bit more rest.
Yep.
Now, before we let you go, we want to leave you with a final thought. We talked about how routines and familiarity signal safety to the brain, and how constant newness can actually be a stressor.
This raises an important question to mull over. If familiarity equals safety for the brain, in what other areas of your life beyond money are you introducing unnecessary stress just by chasing newness?
Are you constantly upgrading your hobbies, your social circles, or even your entertainment? When settling for enough might actually give your brain the break it is desperate for.
Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is just stay put and enjoy what you already have.
Something to think about the next time you feel the urge to overhaul your life. Thanks for diving in with us.
Take care. You know that specific feeling when you wake up? The alarm goes off and before your feet even hit the floor, there's just this background hum.
Right. It's not a loud noise.
No, it's not a siren. It's not full-blown panic where you're hyperventilating. It's just this low-frequency static in the back of your skull.
And the source material we're covering today, it actually calls that the soft pressure.
The soft pressure, that is such a perfect name for it. And for a huge chunk of the population, that pressure isn't about relationships or health.
It's money.
It's money. It's this quiet, nagging tension that's always asking, am I doing enough? Is there a bill I forgot? Should I be investing in that thing my cousin told me about? It's just there.
And physiologically, that hum is your nervous system just sitting in a state of low-level arousal. It's exhausting.
Totally exhausting.
And usually the way we try to fix that financial anxiety is by speeding up. We think the antidote is to hustle harder, maximize every single yield, and, stare at complex spreadsheets until our eyes bleed.
Right, we try to outrun the anxiety. But today, we're doing a deep dive into a text that suggests the exact opposite. We're looking at a calm way to think about money, simplicity, and peace. And I have to say, coming from a world of get-rich-quick or 10x your life content, reading this felt like someone just opened a window in a stuffy room.
It's a radical departure, isn't it? It's almost countercultural. The mission of this deep dive, and really the core argument of the source, is to dismantle this whole assumption that money has to be heavy.
Okay.
We want to explore how a slower approach can actually transform money from a source of anxiety into a source of safety.
And we aren't talking about slow as in lazy. We're talking about intentionality.
Precisely. We're going to cover the profound difference between control and clarity. We're going to unpack this concept of the soft outline budget, which I think is going to change how a lot of listeners view their bank accounts.
Oh, I'm excited about that one.
And we're going to look at why doing less might actually be the smartest financial move for your actual brain chemistry.
I love that brain chemistry angle because money is math, sure, but how we feel about money is entirely biological.
It's emotional and physiological.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics of management, because management is a loaded word.
It really is.
If I tell you to manage your finances, what's the first image that pops into your head?
Honestly, stress. I picture a calculator, a stack of receipts, and a feeling of guilt that I bought a sandwich instead of making one. I feel like management usually implies policing.
Exactly. That is the traditional model. It relies on hypervigilance. And the source argues that we just misunderstand management. We think it means watching every number, constantly refreshing the banking app.
Obsessing over daily market fluctuations.
Right. We conflate staring at the problem with fixing the problem.
But staring at it just makes the monster look bigger.
It does. But this text offers a massive reframe. It defines management simply as awareness.
Just awareness.
That's it. Not punishment. Awareness. It breaks it down into 3 incredibly simple points. Number 1, knowing money comes in. Number 2, knowing money goes out.
And number 3,
knowing that you are doing your best in between.
Knowing you are doing your best in between. See, that feels dangerous to some people. It feels like letting yourself off the hook.
I get that.
If I'm just doing my best, am I actually making progress? Or am I just, drifting?
That's the fear talking.
Yeah.
But the text makes a key distinction between negligence and clarity.
Yeah.
It's not about ignoring your finances.
Okay.
It's about shifting the goalpost from control to clarity. We often chase control. We want to control the market, control inflation, control the future. But that's an illusion. You can't control those things.
can't have clarity.
You can. And the text explicitly says you don't need perfection. You don't need control. You only need clarity.
And clarity brings calm.
That's the phrase.
That phrase really stuck with me. It reminds me of the whole monster under the bed effect when the lights are off, when you don't check your balance because you're scared. The monster is 10 feet tall. But when you turn the lights on, that's clarity. You might see a mess. You might see debt. You might see that you overspent. But you see the reality. And reality is finite.
The monster in your head is infinite.
Exactly.
That is a crucial insight. Reality is just logistics. You can deal with logistics. You cannot deal with a vague, undefined sense of doom. So the first step to this calm way is simply turning on the light without judging the mess you find.
So let's say we have the lights on, we see the numbers. How do we organize them without falling back into that rigid, punishing mindset? This brings us to the soft outline budget.
Which is my favorite concept from this source. I mean, most budgeting advice is incredibly rigid. You have the envelope method or zero-based budgeting.
Yes, every dollar has a job.
And if you spend $10 on a book you didn't plan for, the whole system breaks and you feel like a failure.
And when you feel like a failure, you usually just give up entirely and buy 3 more books. It's the what the hell effect.
Exactly. Rigid systems are brittle, they break easily. The soft outline is flexible. It treats the budget as a narrative, not a math problem.
A narrative? How so?
It sounds like this. I earn money each month, I pay for the things I need, and if I can, I save a little.
If I can. That conditional phrase does a lot of heavy lifting there.
It removes the binary of success versus failure. The takeaway here is that when you view your finances through this soft outline, money stops feeling so mysterious.
And when something stops being mysterious.
It stops being frightening. It becomes manageable.
It sounds like treating yourself like an adult rather than a misbehaving child. I earn, I pay, I save if possible. It's a rhythm, not
The art of the pause. And again, the focus shifts from restriction, which just triggers feelings of deprivation, to slowing down.
Deprivation is a terrible strategy for long-term change. It's like a crash diet.
It is.
If you tell yourself, I can never buy a latte again, eventually you're going to buy the coffee machine, the beans, and the whole pastry shop.
You binge. So the source suggests that instead of a hard no, you just insert a little wedge of time.
Yeah.
You slow the process down with 3 specific questions.
I wrote these down because I want to start using them. The first one is pretty standard. Do I need this right now? We all know that one.
Sure.
But the second one is the game changer for me.
Which is, will this add something calm to my life?
That is such a profound shift in criteria. Usually when I'm impulse buying, my brain is asking, will this make me happy? Or is this exciting? Or will this make me look cool?
Those are dopamine-seeking questions. You're looking for a hit. Will this give me a rush? But asking, will this add calm, engages a completely different part of the brain. It moves you from seeking short-term stimulation to seeking long-term well-being.
It forces you to project into the future. Because a lot of things I buy, little gadgets, fast fashion, just clutter, they give me a buzz for 10 minutes. But do they add calm? No. They add clutter, they add maintenance, they add visual noise.
Exactly, they actually subtract calm.
And the third question is, can this wait?
Which brings us to the power of the pause itself. The source emphasizes that the answer to these questions can be yes. You can buy the thing.
Good.
This isn't about asceticism, but the magic is in the waiting. The text has, the pause creates space, and space reduces stress.
It breaks that automatic loop. See? Want. Buy.
It interrupts the impulse. And physiologically, impulsive spending is often a stress response. We shop to self-soothe. We feel bad, we buy something, we feel a tiny bit better for a moment.
Yeah, for a second.
By pausing, you allow your nervous system to regulate. You move from a reactive state to a responsive state. You're regaining agency.
Regaining agency sounds a lot better than saving $5. It feels more empowering.
It is. It's about being the driver, not the passenger.
Speaking of agency, let's talk about safety. Because for most people, financial safety is a number. They think, when I hit $50,000 in savings, then I'll breathe.
Or, when I own a house, then I'll feel safe.
Exactly.
That is the common belief, that safety is external. It's a pile of resources you build around yourself like a fortress. But this source challenges that directly.
Yeah.
It argues that safety isn't about the cash. It's about trust.
Trust in what? The economy. because I definitely do not trust the economy.
No, and you shouldn't, because it's unpredictable. The text defines financial safety as trusting in your own adaptability.
Okay.
Trusting that you can handle small problems. Trusting that if the plan changes, you can pivot. Trusting that you can learn as you go.
That is a massive shift. If my safety is tied to a number, I am constantly vulnerable because numbers change. Markets crash, emergencies happen.
Exactly. If your safety is external, it can be taken away. If your safety is internal, tied to your own resilience and capability, it's so much more stable. The source says, when you stop fighting money and start working with it, the stress slowly fades.
There's also a really beautiful reframing of why we save in this text. It moves away from fear.
Yes. Usually we save for a rainy day.
Which is such a depressing metaphor. It implies that a storm is coming. I'm saving money because I expect disaster.
You're bracing for impact.
Yeah.
And that keeps the brain in a state of threat vigilance. You're constantly looking at the horizon for the storm clouds.
Yeah.
The source suggests we view saving as preparing for comfort. We're preparing for care.
Preparing for comfort. So that emergency fund isn't a disaster fund. It's a sleep better at night fund.
It's a subtle linguistic shift, but language shapes reality. And the text notes that this kind of security, even a small amount, helps the body relax. There's a real physiological link. When you have that cushion, your cortisol levels drop. Your shoulders physically drop. You aren't scanning for threats because you know you have a buffer.
But building that buffer, that's where people get stuck. They look at the soft outline, they understand the pause, but then they think, I need to save $500 this month or it doesn't count.
The all-or-nothing trap.
And if they can't, they do nothing.
It's lethal to progress. And the source is adamant about avoiding the dramatic overhaul. We love that new year, new me energy where we vow to never eat out again and save 50% of our income.
But that never lasts.
Never. The text argues for the power of small, quiet habits.
The quiet, everyday ways. I loved the examples the source gave because they are so achievable.
They're low-resistance actions.
Right. It wasn't sell your car. It was, I'll make coffee at home today. I'll cook something simple tonight. And my favorite, I'll use what I already have.
I'll use what I already have. That phrase is incredibly powerful. We live in a culture that tells us everything we own is obsolete the moment we buy it.
Oh, for sure.
There's always a better phone, a better pan, a better jacket.
Choosing to use what you have is almost an act of rebellion.
It is. It's a mantra for contentment. And notice how light those choices feel. They don't require massive willpower. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through making coffee at home.
It's just a small, quiet choice.
Yeah.
But does that actually move the needle? I can hear the skeptics saying, okay, saving $4 on coffee isn't going to make me a millionaire.
Well, mathematically, over 30 years, maybe not a millionaire, but it adds up. But the source argues the primary benefit isn't the math, it's the psychology.
Okay.
When you make these small choices, you begin to feel capable.
Capable.
Yes. Feeling capable is inherently calming. It builds self-efficacy. You're proving to yourself, I can make a choice that is good for me. And that confidence, it snowballs.
So it's proof of concept. You do the small thing, you feel good, so you do another small thing.
And the source points out that slow change feels safer. Fast change is exciting, but it triggers the brain's resistance mechanisms. We naturally resist radical shifts. Slow change, one small habit becoming normal, then another, it bypasses that resistance. As the text says, money responds well to patience.
Money responds well to patience. I feel like we live in a world that demands money respond to speed. High-frequency trading, instant transfers, crypto spikes. Patience feels vintage.
But patience is where the peace is. And that leads us into the broader philosophy of the source, simplicity.
Right.
Now, simple living is a trendy term. We usually think of empty white rooms, minimal furniture, maybe one fork.
The aesthetic of minimalism.
Right. But the text defines simplicity differently. It defines it as choosing less noise. And this brings us back to the cognitive load of modern life. We are just drowning in choices.
We are.
Every single purchase you make, every item you bring into your life asks something from your mind.
It's not just the money cost, it's the mental cost.
Think about buying a new pair of headphones. It sounds simple, but you have to research models, compare prices, read reviews, worry about shipping, worry if you pick the right color.
Worry about the return policy.
Exactly. That is mental energy. That is glucose burning in your brain.
And we do that 10 times a day. No wonder we're exhausted.
The source explains it perfectly. When you buy less, your mind works less. And when the mind works less, it rests more.
So frugality isn't just about keeping money in your wallet. It's about keeping energy in your brain.
It's cognitive conservation.
Mm-hmm.
We all suffer from decision fatigue. By the end of the day, our ability to make good choices is just eroded because we've made 1,000 tiny decisions.
Mm-hmm.
If you adopt a philosophy of enough, knowing what you like and sticking to it, you just opt out of that cycle.
You don't have to process the marketing because you already know you're good. You have enough.
Exactly. And this connects to the idea of routines. The source calls them gentle routines.
Now, routine can sound boring. We're taught to shake things up, be spontaneous.
In our hyper-novelty culture, yes, we want new experiences constantly. But the source argues that routines act as safety signals to the body.
How does a routine signal safety?
Well, think about your primal brain. It's constantly scanning for danger. When your environment is predictable, when you have the same morning ritual, the same standard dinner on Tuesdays,
The same budgeting time.
yes, it sends a message to that primal brain. Nothing is wrong. You're safe. There are no tigers here.
Because there are no surprises.
Exactly. And safety invites rest. In a chaotic world, creating pockets of predictability, whether that's a soft outline budget or just having oatmeal every morning, is a profound form of self-care.
It's letting your guard down.
It creates a container where you can actually relax, rather than constantly adapting to new inputs.
So if we look at the arc of this deep dive, we've moved from the soft pressure of anxiety, that hum in the morning, to this idea of gentle routines and clarity. It's a really cohesive argument for just lowering the volume on your financial life.
It is. It's about moving from a relationship with money that is adversarial, where you're fighting your impulses, fighting the market, fighting your budget, to one that's cooperative.
And kindness seems to be the glue holding it all together. That's what I really took away from this source. The text explicitly mentions kindness toward oneself.
Which is incredibly rare in financial advice. Usually the tone is discipline, grit, hustle.
Stop buying avocado toast.
Right. It's shameful. But this source reminds us that a peaceful life isn't built overnight. It's built gently, through small choices.
And you're allowed to learn slowly.
Yes, you are allowed to learn slowly. You are allowed to change your mind.
That permission to learn slowly feels like the ultimate stress reliever. There is no deadline for getting this right. I don't have to fix my entire financial life by Friday.
No, you just need to find calmer ways. That's the goal. Not perfection, but calm.
Yeah.
Because as the source connects in the end, everything flows downstream from this state of mind. It says, when money feels calmer, life feels lighter. And when life feels lighter, sleep comes more easily.
And in the current climate, where sleep is a commodity and stress is the default, that is a high-value return on investment.
It's the ultimate metric of success. Not net worth, but rest. If your money strategy is keeping you up at night, it's the wrong strategy no matter what the math says.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a final thought from the text. We talk a lot about life being richer or more successful, but the source uses the word lighter.
Lighter is such a visceral feeling. It's the absence of that heavy backpack we talked about at the start. It's the absence of the hum.
So here's the question for you to carry into your day or your evening. What would lighter look like for you tomorrow? Not 5 years from now when you're debt-free, but just tomorrow. Maybe it's pausing before that one purchase and asking if it adds calm. Maybe it's ignoring the stock market news for 24 hours. Or maybe it's just trusting yourself a little bit more than you did today.
Just a little bit. That's all it takes to start.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
You know how sometimes you hear a phrase in English that just stops you? Not because it's complicated, but because it's so perfectly, well, English. Well, you, our listeners, you sent us down a bit of a rabbit hole with 20 such phrases, these lesser-known idioms, that are just packed with flavor.
Yeah, some really interesting ones came through.
Totally. So think of this as maybe your shortcut to sounding less like you're reading a textbook.
And more like you're actually living the language.
Exactly. Our mission today, it's pretty simple. Unpack these gems, figure out what they really mean, and you know, how you can maybe weave them into your everyday conversation.
To really nail that natural English flow.
Right. So ready to explore beyond the usual it's raining cats and dogs?
Definitely. Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick things off with one that sounds a bit, well, crunchy. Bite the biscuit.
Bite the biscuit.
Yeah.
It's a curious one, isn't it? It essentially boils down to having to face an unpleasant situation.
Right.
Or, accept something difficult, even if it's the absolute last thing you want to do.
So like gritting your teeth and getting on with it.
Exactly. What's interesting about this, I think, is that sense of quiet resignation it carries. It's not really about fighting back,
No.
but more about stoically getting through something.
Right. And the example from an article nails it. I didn't want to go to the dentist, but I had to bite the biscuit and make the appointment.
Yeah, we've all been there, haven't we?
Oh, totally. That moment where you just have to brace yourself and get on with something you're dreading, it's just so much more evocative than saying, I had to do it.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's maybe a hint of that British stiff upper lip in there, that idea of just getting on with things without too much fuss.
Could be. Yeah.
It's a very understated way of expressing a pretty common struggle.
Okay, next up we have one that paints a rather dramatic and unfortunately often all too familiar picture. Throw someone under the bus.
Ooh, yeah. This idiom is definitely on the sharper side.
Mm-hmm.
To throw someone under the bus
Mm.
means to betray them, basically for your own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Often in a public setting, like work,
So sacrificing them to save yourself.
pretty much. You're sacrificing their well-being or their reputation to make yourself look better or, avoid blame. The imagery is just brutal, isn't it?
It really is, and the example in the article couldn't be clearer. During the meeting, Mark threw Jane under the bus just to look good in front of the boss. Ouch.
Big ouch.
We've probably all witnessed or maybe even been on the receiving end of something like that. It really cuts to the core of that kind of self-serving behavior.
It does.
Why under the bus, though? Is there any specific origin there, do you know?
Well, the exact origin is a bit murky, actually.
No.
But the bus, in this context, it clearly symbolizes something large, powerful, dangerous.
Right. You wouldn't survive that.
No. So the act of throwing someone in its path vividly conveys that idea of utter betrayal and potential harm to the person being sacrificed.
Like being completely abandoned.
Yeah, it's a very visceral image.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Shifting gears to something that brings maybe a wry smile to my face, especially if you've ever tried to coordinate, well, pretty much anything with more than two people.
Oh, let me guess. Like herding cats.
You got it. Like herding cats.
It's such a wonderfully vivid and humorous way to describe a task that is just incredibly difficult, bordering on impossible to manage.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Cats are independent creatures, right? Getting them to move in a coordinated way, it's chaos. Pure chaos.
The example from the source is perfect. Trying to organize my group of friends for a trip was like herding cats.
Oh, I feel that.
I think anyone who's ever planned a group outing just let out a collective sigh of recognition there.
Definitely.
What makes this idiom so effective, do you think? Is it just the inherent difficulty of dealing with cats?
I think it's the perfect storm. The cat's independent nature combined with the implied frustration of the person trying to control them.
Right, that feeling of helplessness.
Exactly. There's a sense of futility and a shared understanding that some tasks are just inherently unruly, resistant to organization.
Wow.
The humor comes from that relatable feeling of being completely overwhelmed.
Now, here's one that sounds like a fantastic motto for self-preservation. Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Huh. Exactly. This idiom is brilliant. It's all about establishing healthy boundaries.
Okay.
When you say, not my circus, not my monkeys, you're clearly stating that a particular situation or drama or problem,
Right.
it's just not your responsibility.
Right. I'm out.
Precisely. You're choosing not to get involved. It's a way of detaching yourself from other people's chaos.
The example is so concise and effective. They can argue all they want. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. It's a pretty direct way to say, I'm staying out of this. It really speaks to a desire to protect your own peace of mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Where do you think the circus and monkeys imagery comes from? It's so specific.
Well, the circus, right,
Yeah.
with its inherent spectacle and often unpredictable nature,
Hmm.
that represents a chaotic situation.
Okay, makes sense.
And the monkeys, often seen as mischievous, difficult to control, they symbolize the problematic individuals involved.
Ah, I see.
So by saying it's not your circus or your monkeys, you're basically disclaiming ownership of the whole messy situation and the responsibility for managing it.
Okay, this next one resonates deeply in our, well, often frantic modern lives. Burning the candle at both ends.
Oh yes, burning the candle at both ends. It paints a very clear picture, doesn't it? Someone who is just overworking themselves, not getting enough rest.
Yeah.
They're depleting their energy reserves at a totally unsustainable rate, much like a candle consumed from both ends will burn down incredibly quickly.
It really speaks to that lifestyle of constant activity without adequate recovery.
Exactly.
The article provides a really common scenario. She's studying and working two jobs, burning the candle at both ends.
Classic example.
It's such a vivid way to describe exhaustion and, the potential for burnout. It's almost a warning, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the image of the candle being consumed from two sides really emphasizes the rapid depletion of resources, in this case, someone's health, their energy.
Right.
It implicitly suggests that this pace, well, it just can't be maintained indefinitely.
Yeah.
It'll eventually lead to negative consequences.
Yeah, you'll hit a wall. Okay, here's an idiom that I think we've all felt at one point or another when faced with a tough choice. Caught between two stools.
Caught between two stools. Yes, this perfectly illustrates that feeling of being unable to decide between two options.
Like you're stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're in a really precarious position, unable to comfortably commit to either choice, and, well, trying to sit on both simultaneously will likely lead to a fall, right?
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically, yes. It's a state of indecision and potential discomfort.
The example given is, he's caught between two stools, take the job abroad or stay close to family.
Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that feeling of being torn, where each option has significant pros and cons, and choosing one means potentially losing out on the other. It's a real dilemma.
Exactly. It highlights the difficulty of making a decision when both options seem appealing, or maybe when choosing one entails a significant sacrifice.
Yeah.
You're just stuck in the middle, unable to move forward comfortably.
And for one with a bit more dramatic flair, something that sounds like a spectacular failure, go down in flames.
Go down in flames. Yes, this one vividly describes a failure that is sudden, often very public, and quite catastrophic.
So not just failing, but failing big time.
Precisely. It's not just a minor setback. It implies a complete and dramatic collapse of something like a project, a business venture, maybe even a personal endeavor.
Right.
The flames part really adds that element of, destruction and finality.
The example is stark. The company's new product launch went down in flames due to poor planning.
Yeah, you can almost see the metaphorical explosion, right?
Totally. The utter devastation of a failed attempt. It's certainly a more impactful way to say something didn't succeed.
It is. The imagery evokes a sense of complete, utter failure, leaving very little room for recovery. It's a memorable and dramatic way to describe a significant disaster.
Let's move to something a bit more celebratory now, an idiom that suggests a night of uninhibited fun. Paint the town red.
Paint the town red. This is a wonderfully exuberant idiom. It just means to go out and have a wild, lively, festive time.
Well, letting loose.
Yeah, often involving partying, general merriment. It suggests a night of letting loose and enjoying oneself to the absolute fullest.
The example is, after our exams, we went out and painted the town red.
Sounds about right.
It definitely conjures up images of celebration and carefree fun. It makes you wonder, though, why red? Is there any historical significance to that color here?
That's a fascinating question, actually. While the exact origins are debated, the color red has long been associated with excitement, passion, even a bit of rebellion.
Okay.
So it's possible the phrase originally implied a more, let's say, riotous or even slightly mischievous form of celebration, metaphorically coloring the town with their energetic activities.
Interesting. Okay, here's one that describes a sudden and intense loss of temper. Fly off the handle?
Fly off the handle. Yeah, this means to suddenly become very angry and just lose control of your emotion.
Zap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests a quick and unexpected outburst of temper, much like, say, an axe head suddenly detaching from its handle and flying away.
Wow. Okay.
The emphasis is really on the suddenness and the loss of control.
The example provided is quite clear. Dad flew off the handle when he saw the broken window.
Yep. You can almost picture the sudden explosion of anger.
Totally. What does the handle symbolize in this context, then?
Well, the handle represents control, stability.
Right.
So when someone flies off the handle, they lose that control, and their anger becomes erratic, unpredictable. The imagery effectively conveys that sudden, uncontrolled nature of the outburst.
And now, a more direct, though definitely informal way to ask someone to calm down. Keep your shirt on.
Keep your shirt on. Yes, this is very colloquial, often lighthearted. It's a way of telling someone to stay calm, be patient.
Chill out.
Yeah, chill out. Don't get overly agitated or angry. It's often used when someone's acting impatiently or seems like they're about to lose their temper. There's a certain casualness to it.
The example is straightforward. Keep your shirt on. The food will be ready soon.
Yeah.
It's a pretty clear way of saying, relax. There's no need to get worked up. There's definitely a touch of informal humor there, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think it's a slightly absurd image, right? implying the person is so worked up they might literally start taking off their clothes.
Right.
This exaggeration helps to lighten the mood and encourage them to calm down.
Okay. This next one is definitely not for polite company in most situations. Put a sock in it.
Ooh, yeah.
Ah.
Put a sock in it.
That-
It's a very rude, very direct way to tell someone to be quiet.
So use with caution.
Extreme caution. It's generally considered quite impolite and should be used very sparingly, if at all. It conveys a strong desire for someone to just stop talking,
Why?
often because what they're saying is annoying or unwanted or just going on too long.
The example given is he wouldn't stop talking, so she told him to put a sock in it. It's clear from this that it's a phrase used out of frustration
Definitely.
and likely to cause offense. It's certainly not something you'd use in a professional setting, I imagine.
Absolutely not.
Where does this rather bizarre imagery even come from? A sock.
Well, the origin is thought to be related to early phonographs, actually.
Really?
Yeah, where a sock or maybe a piece of cloth was sometimes literally stuffed into the horn to dampen the sound.
Ah.
So applying that to a person's speech is a pretty crude way of saying their voice needs to be silenced or muffled.
Wow. Okay. Moving on to a more strategic and insightful idiom. Know which way the wind is blowing.
Right. To know which way the wind is blowing means to be perceptive, aware of the current situation, the trends, the prevailing opinions.
Before you act.
Exactly. Before making a decision or taking action. It suggests having foresight and understanding the direction things are heading, whether that's in politics, business, or just social situations.
The example provided is, good politicians always know which way the wind is blowing.
A classic example again.
It highlights the importance of being politically astute, understanding public sentiment to make effective choices. How does someone practically know which way the wind is blowing? It sounds a bit mystical.
It's not mystical, really. It involves paying close attention to various indicators, public opinion polls, sure, but also current events, social media trends, market research,
Okay.
even subtle shifts in people's attitudes and behaviors. It's about being observant, analytical, and able to interpret these signs to anticipate future developments.
Got it. Okay, here's an idiom that paints a picture of minimal staffing. Skeleton crew.
Skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, this refers to the absolute minimum number of staff required to keep a business or a service or an operation running at just a basic level.
Just the bones.
Exactly. It implies a significant reduction in personnel, often due to circumstances like holidays, off-peak hours, or maybe budget constraints. The image is of just the essential framework remaining.
The example is, only a skeleton crew was working during the holiday weekend.
Yep.
It really conveys that idea of a place being minimally staffed with just the necessary people to keep things ticking over.
Exactly. It emphasizes the bare essentials being in place, with most of the usual workforce absent. It suggests a limited capacity and perhaps a slower pace of operations, too.
Now, for an idiom that helps to keep minor issues in perspective, a storm in a teacup.
A storm in a teacup. I love this one. It's a wonderful idiom that describes a situation where a small, insignificant problem or disagreement is just blown way out of proportion.
Made into a huge drama.
Exactly. Exaggerated, made to seem much more serious and dramatic than it actually is. The contrast between the immense power of a storm and the tiny scale of a teacup really highlights the absurdity of the overreaction.
The example is, their fight was just a storm in a teacup. It's a great way to downplay a petty argument or someone making a massive deal out of something trivial.
It is. It's quite a gentle way, actually, of suggesting that people are overreacting and that the issue at hand is, well, not as significant as they're making it out to be.
Here's one that can be incredibly frustrating to encounter, especially when you feel like you're making progress. Move the goalposts.
Ooh, yes. Move the goalposts. This describes a particularly unfair tactic where someone changes the rules or the requirements of a task or competition after you've already started working towards the original objectives.
So frustrating.
Incredibly. It creates a sense of injustice and makes it much harder, if not impossible, to achieve success because the target keeps shifting.
The example is infuriatingly relatable. I was about to complete the task when they moved the goalposts again.
You just want to scream.
Right, that feeling of constantly having your efforts undermined because the criteria for success are never fixed.
It really speaks to a lack of integrity, I think, and can be incredibly demotivating. It suggests the person moving the goalposts is either deliberately trying to prevent success,
Or just disorganize.
or maybe just being inconsistent and unfair in their expectations. Either way, it's not good.
Okay, this next one suggests a sudden and often opportunistic departure. jump ship.
Jump ship.
Yeah. This means to suddenly leave a job or an organization or a situation, often when things are becoming difficult or unfavorable.
Getting out while the getting's good. Or bad.
Kind of. It implies a swift and sometimes unexpected departure, often with the implication of seeking a better opportunity elsewhere. The nautical imagery is quite strong here.
The example is 3 employees jump ship after the new manager arrived.
Tells a story, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests maybe a lack of confidence in the new leadership, or perhaps a desire to escape a potentially negative environment. Why ship, specifically?
Well, the ship symbolizes the organization or the situation. So just as sailors might abandon a sinking or troubled vessel.
People who jump ship are leaving a situation they perceive as failing, or maybe just no longer beneficial to them. It often implies a degree of urgency and self-preservation.
Makes sense. Okay, here's an idiom that describes an unexpected disruption or obstacle. Throw a spanner in the works.
Throw a spanner in the works. Or, as Americans might say, a wrench.
Ah, right. Spanner wrench.
Yeah. It means to do something that causes unexpected problems or hinders the progress of a plan or operation.
Okay.
The image of a spanner, or a wrench, being thrown into machinery vividly illustrates how a small, unexpected interference can bring everything grinding to a halt or cause significant disruption.
The example is, the weather threw a spanner in the works of our beach plans.
A classic British example.
Indeed. It perfectly highlights how unforeseen circumstances can derail even the best-laid plans.
Exactly. It emphasizes that element of surprise and the way in which a seemingly minor obstacle can have a really significant negative impact on progress.
Okay, this next one is all about efficiency and getting straight to the point. Cut to the chase.
Love this one. Cut to the chase. It means get to the main point, the most important part of a discussion or story, without all the unnecessary introductions or details or preamble.
Stop beating around the bush.
Exactly. It's about being direct and valuing brevity in communication. It implies wanting to avoid wasting time on less relevant information.
The example is direct and to the point itself. Let's cut to the chase. Are you joining us or not?
Perfect.
It's a clear and efficient way to ask for a decision.
It is. It prioritizes the essential information and seeks a quick resolution by bypassing any unnecessary fluff or background. Very useful.
Here's an idiom that advises taking a moment for things to settle down. Let the dust settle.
Let the dust settle.
Yeah.
Such wise advice packed into a simple phrase. It means to wait for a chaotic or confusing situation to calm down.
Take a breath.
Yeah. And for things to become clearer before taking action or making a decision. It suggests allowing time for emotions to subside and for a clearer perspective to emerge once the initial disruption is past.
The example is good advice. Let's let the dust settle before making a big decision.
Definitely.
It highlights the importance of not rushing into important choices when things are still uncertain or, emotional.
The analogy of stirred up dust obscuring your vision is really effective here, I think.
Yeah.
Just as you need to wait for physical dust to settle to see clearly, you sometimes need to allow time for a situation to stabilize before you can make a sound judgment.
And finally, our 20th idiom. We arrive at one that evokes a sense of exploration and discovery. Off the beaten track.
Off the beaten track. Yeah, this refers to a place or a route or maybe an experience that isn't commonly visited or known.
Somewhere different.
Exactly. It suggests something secluded, less conventional, and often more interesting or authentic or unique than the mainstream options. It appeals to that sense of adventure, doesn't it?
It really does.
The desire to discover hidden gems.
The example is inviting. We found a charming little cafe off the beaten track.
Sounds lovely.
It conjures up the idea of stumbling upon something special and undiscovered, away from the usual tourist crowds or busy streets.
Exactly. It speaks to the allure of the less traveled path and the potential for finding something truly memorable and distinct.
Well, there you have it, a deep dive into 20 fascinating, less common English idioms. Hopefully, you've picked up a few new linguistic tools to add some extra color to your English.
That article you shared was a goldmine. What's so valuable about these idioms, I think, is how they often encapsulate complex ideas or feelings in such a concise and memorable way.
Yeah, they're like shortcuts.
They really are. They offer a real shortcut to expressing yourself more naturally
Yeah.
and with greater nuance.
Absolutely. And as we've seen, they often carry little nuggets of cultural insight too, don't they?
They really do.
My advice, don't try to cram them all in at once. Pick a couple that you really like the sound of.
Yeah, the ones that resonate.
Exactly. And try them out in your conversations. You know, like anything, practice makes perfect.
And if we just step back and look at the bigger picture for a second, mastering these kinds of idiomatic expressions isn't just about improving your vocabulary list.
No, it's more than that.
It's about gaining a deeper appreciation for the richness and the creativity of the English language and maybe the cultural perspectives embedded within it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden layers of meaning are waiting to be uncovered in the way we speak every single day?
Exactly. Food for thought. Okay, so we really need to talk about this optimization trap.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? This era where every single part of our lives is something to be, I don't know, hacked or tracked or improved.
Every single thing.
Yeah, we track our steps, we monitor our REM cycles, we color code our calendars, and we listen to deep dives like this one, hoping to get that one little nugget that'll make us 10% more efficient.
It's the prevailing mindset, isn't it? The whole fix-it mentality.
Totally.
If you feel tired, there must be a supplement for it. If you feel anxious, there's got to be a productivity hack to organize your way out of it. We treat being human like it's software that needs another patch.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's just exhausting. It feels like we're in a race where the finish line just keeps moving. But that is exactly why I'm so interested in the source stack you brought in today.
Right.
Because on paper, this looks like the complete opposite of some high-performance manual. In fact, I think you called it a sleep-friendly article.
That's right. And I want to be really clear about what that means. This isn't a medical journal. It's not some breaking news report.
Okay.
It's a text that was originally designed to be soft. It's wordy, it's rhythmic, and its main job is to lull the reader into a state of calm. It's counter-programming.
So wait, are we doing a deep dive into a bedtime story?
In a way, yeah. But, and this is the key thing, this is why we're here, it's a Trojan horse. Because beneath that, that soothing, sleepy vibe, this text actually lays out a pretty profound psychology of non-interference. It argues that we don't need to engineer ourselves, we just need to notice ourselves.
Noticing versus fixing.
Exactly. It offers a framework for understanding why we do what we do, but without all the pressure to change it immediately.
That's the distinction we're going to explore today, because as I was reading this, I realized it covers 3 huge areas. The signals our bodies send, why we get so burned out, and how we actually process emotions. And it does it in a way that feels... well, it feels surprisingly scientific for something that's meant to put you to sleep.
It is surprisingly rigorous. It suggests that psychology isn't just happening in your brain or in a therapy session.
Right.
It's happening in the way you hold your shoulders or the way you break eye contact or even how you feel when you're trying to pick a pasta sauce at the grocery store.
Okay, let's start there with the physical. The source calls it the silent conversation. And I think most of us assume we know what body language is. We've all seen those videos on, like, how to power pose to dominate a meeting or whatever.
Right, the whole dominance narrative. But this source just flips that on its head. It's not about how to project power. It's about how to gather data.
Gather data there.
The core idea here is that the body is constantly broadcasting a signal, and our problem is that we immediately judge that signal instead of just, reading it.
Okay, give me an example of that judgment, because I feel like I'm pretty good at reading people.
Sure. Let's take eye contact. It's the most primal signal we have. The source notes that when someone holds our eye contact, we feel noticed. It sort of validates our existence. But let's look at the flip side. You're in a meeting, you're pitching an idea you're really passionate about, and the person across from you is, I don't know, looking at the ceiling or staring at the table. What's your immediate gut reaction?
Oh, yeah, 100%. My first thought is I'm tanking.
Right.
I'm thinking, okay, they're bored. They hate this. They think I'm an idiot. It feels like, I don't know, a total rejection.
Exactly. You've assigned a motive. You've judged the behavior as disinterest. But the source is really urging us to just pause that judgment.
Why?
It argues that context overrides content. So that person looking at the ceiling, they might be an auditory learner. They might be visualizing the concept you're describing. And to do that, they have to cut off their visual input. So by looking away, they're actually focusing harder.
That's a really fair point. I actually do that sometimes. If I'm really trying to find the right word, I'll look down or away.
But when you do it, you know you're thinking. When someone else does it, you assume they're checking out.
Ouch. Yeah.
The source is just saying that avoiding eye contact doesn't automatically mean something negative about you. It could be shyness or distance or deep thought. The key is just that there's no single meaning.
So the advice here is basically to stop taking body language so personally.
Essentially, yes. If you treat body language as information rather than feedback on your performance, the whole dynamic changes. You stop spiraling into insecurity and you can stay present.
What about posture? Because that's another area where I feel like there's a lot of cultural baggage. Sit up straight is like the first command you learn as a kid.
It is. We connect posture with morality or discipline. A slumped posture means you're lazy. A rigid one means you're attentive.
Right.
But the text invites us to just drop that moral framework entirely.
So if I'm, slumped over my desk like a turtle, which I definitely was prepping for this, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's a story. The source asks you to see your posture as a status report from your nervous system.
A status report. I like that.
Yeah. If your shoulders are hiked up by your ears, your body is telling a story of protection. You're guarding your neck. You're probably in a state of high alert or stress about something.
That's actually a really helpful visual. So instead of thinking, I need to fix my posture because I look sloppy, I could think, why is my body trying to protect my neck right now? What am I reacting to?
Precisely. It turns your body into a dashboard, and the source makes this fantastic point. There is no right or wrong posture. There is only information. If you notice you're collapsed in your chair, that is information telling you you're depleted. If you're rigid, that is information that you're bracing for something.
And once you have that information, then you can decide what to do.
Right.
But you can't do anything if you're just busy criticizing yourself for slouching.
Exactly. And this idea extends to the third element the source covers, personal space. This is one that varies so much between cultures and people, but the source frames respecting personal space as a form of kindness.
I have a friend who is a classic close talker.
Yeah.
You know the type. They stand just a little too close. And I always feel this visceral need to back up. It feels aggressive, even when they're being friendly.
That visceral reaction, that's your amygdala firing. We all have a comfort zone. It's this invisible bubble where we feel safe. And when it's breached, even by a friend, our baseline anxiety just spikes.
Yeah.
The kindness the source talks about is just having an awareness of that bubble. It's about reading the room, physically. If you step towards someone and they lean back, that's a signal, not a rejection, just a boundary.
Okay, so we've got this constant stream of data coming in, eyes, posture, space. But a lot of the time, we just ignore those signals until the whole system crashes. And that brings us to the second big pillar of this deep dive, the paradox of being tired.
This is the section of the source where I think that sleep-friendly nature really shines because it gets at something so many of us struggle with. The difference between just being sleepy and being truly depleted.
I think we use the word tired as its catch-all term. But the source describes the specific thing where you can get 8 hours of sleep, you can spend all of Sunday on the couch, but Monday morning you feel like you've been hit by a truck. Physically, you rested, but you're just exhausted.
The source calls this mental fatigue, and it's really different from physical fatigue, and it's important to get the mechanism here. Your brain burns energy, a lot of it.
Okay.
The source lists 3 specific invisible drains that empty your battery even when you're not moving a muscle. Constant thinking, emotional effort, and, this is the big one, decision-making.
Okay, let's drill down on decision-making. I don't think we realize how much that costs us.
Oh, it's massive. Every single time you make a choice, whether it's should I send this email now or later, or which brand of toothpaste do I buy, you are literally consuming glucose. You're using up a finite resource. It's called decision fatigue.
Okay,
Great.
that explains so much. That explains the grocery store paralysis.
Oh, it's a real thing.
I've literally stood there in the pasta aisle,
Wow.
just staring, and I feel physically heavy, like I can't even grab a jar. I just thought I was being indecisive.
But you're not. You're out of feel. You're running on fumes. The source argues that these little micro decisions pile up. So you might be resting on the couch, but if you're scrolling through Netflix for 45 minutes trying to pick something, your brain is running a marathon.
You're not resting, you're processing.
Exactly. And this leads to this crucial distinction the source makes between sleep and quiet.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, sleep is a biological repair process, but quiet is a sensory state. You can be asleep and still have a really noisy, mind-vivid dreams, grinding your teeth, processing the day's stress. Your mind doesn't just need to go unconscious. It specifically asks for a reduction of input. It needs a break from the data stream.
And when we don't give it that quiet, things start to glitch. The source talks about slow thinking.
Yes. And be honest, how do you usually react when your thinking gets slow? When you can't find a word or you have to reread the same sentence 3 times?
I get frustrated. I drink more coffee. I try to force my brain into gear. I tell myself I'm losing my edge or I'm just being stupid today.
We see it as a failure, a malfunction, but the source offers a completely different way to frame it.
Which is?
It argues that slow thinking isn't a failure, it's a signal. It's actually a safety mechanism.
A safety mechanism against what?
Against total burnout. Think of it like a governor on an engine. If the engine is overheating, the system deliberately slows it down to prevent an explosion. The text says, and I love this phrase, the mind is asking for softness.
Softness. Wow, that is such a loaded word. In a world that's all about high performance, we want hardness.
Yeah.
We want grit.
Which is why this is counter-programming. The source suggests that when you hit that wall of brain fog, the most efficient thing you can do is not to push through, but to yield, to accept the slowness. If you stop fighting the fatigue and just treat it as a valid request from your body, the resistance drops. And interestingly, you recover faster.
It's the difference between driving a car with the emergency brake on versus just pulling over for 10 minutes.
That's it, exactly. We spend so much energy just trying to override our own safety signals.
So, okay, we've covered the body signals and the brain's battery.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about the third piece, which is usually the most confusing one. Our emotions.
The quiet logic of emotions. This is the section that really challenges the idea that we're rational actors who occasionally get emotional.
Oh.
The source suggests it's the other way around. We are emotional beings who occasionally use logic.
I hate admitting that. I love to think I'm logical. I make pro and con lists.
Oh, the pro and con list is usually just a way to justify the decision your gut already made.
Okay, fair enough.
But the point the source makes is that emotions aren't usually these loud explosions. We tend to only notice them when they're extreme, rage, grief, euphoria. But the text says they're actually gentle guides. They whisper before they shout.
But we ignore the whisper.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Because the whisper is, well, it's inconvenient.
Give me a scenario. How does this play out on a normal day?
Okay, imagine you're at a dinner party. You've been there for 2 hours. You start to feel this really subtle sense of tension, maybe a little tightness in your chest, or just a slight drop in your mood. That's the whisper. It's saying, we're done. Time to go.
But then the logical brain steps in and says, no, it's rude to leave early. You haven't said goodbye to the host. You should stay another hour.
Exactly. So you stay, you override the signal, and what happens an hour later?
I'm cranky, I'm snapping at my partner on the drive home, and I feel totally drained. The whisper became a scream.
There you go. The source suggests that if we practice what it calls calm reflection, just slowing down enough to ask, does this feel right now?
Yeah.
We can catch those signals while they're still manageable.
Does this feel right now? That's the question.
It is. And notice how immediate it is. Not, does this make sense for my 5-year plan, but does this feel right in this second? It grounds you in the present reality of your own nervous system.
But asking the question is only half of it. The other half is how we treat the answer. And this leads to what I think is maybe the most practical tool in this whole deep dive, the shift from criticism to curiosity.
I agree completely. This is the how-to. The source points out that our internal monologue is usually an interrogation. We ask why, but we ask it aggressively.
Why am I so anxious? Why can't I just focus? Why am I like this?
It's an accusation. It implies there's a defect that needs to be found and stomped out. And when you attack yourself, your body just responds with more stress. It becomes a loop.
So what's the alternative? How do you break that loop?
The source suggests a really simple linguistic shift. Instead of asking why, you make a statement starting with one word. Interesting.
Interesting. Huh.
Interesting. I feel really defensive right now. Or, interesting. My heart is beating fast.
It's almost, I don't know, it's kind of scientific, right? A little detached.
And that's the whole point. It creates a gap between you and the emotion. You're no longer the person being the problem. You're the observer noticing the phenomenon. Curiosity is a neutral state. Criticism is a negative state. When you're curious, you can learn. When you're critical, you just shut down.
I'm trying it right now. Interesting that I feel the need to fill every silence in this conversation.
And that awareness might let you just be comfortable with a pause. It changes the behavior without any of the shame.
That really is the thread connecting all three of these things, isn't it? Whether we're talking about posture or decision fatigue or emotional whispers, It's all about taking the shame out of just being human.
It is. We spend so much of our lives fighting our own biology. We fight the slump in our shoulders. We fight the afternoon brain fog. We fight the urge to leave the party. We see our own natural rhythms as obstacles we have to overcome.
And this sleepy little article is quietly suggesting that maybe if we stopped fighting, we wouldn't be so tired.
That's the core philosophy it lands on. Psychology doesn't need fixing. It needs listening. When you just notice things without pressure, without that immediate need to hack them, life feels lighter. And when life feels lighter, rest comes more naturally.
It's a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious one.
Precisely. If you listen to your body, you can understand the fatigue. If you understand the fatigue, you grant yourself the quiet. If you have the quiet, you can actually hear your emotions guiding you. It's all one connected system.
So we've unpacked a lot today. We've gone from the grocery aisle to the dinner party to the silence of our own minds. But as we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with something concrete, because we promised this wasn't just about sleep. It was about waking up.
I think the challenge for you, listening today, is to conduct a small experiment. In the next hour, your body or your mind is going to send you a signal. You might yawn, you might feel a flash of irritation, you might find yourself staring blankly at a screen.
And the impulse will be to judge it, to say, wake up, or don't be annoyed, or get back to work.
Right. The challenge is to catch that impulse, stop, and just say, interesting. Treat it as a message, not a malfunction. Ask yourself this: if I viewed this fatigue or this emotion not as a problem to be solved, but as a request from my body, what would I do differently in the next 5 minutes?
Maybe you just close the laptop. Maybe
Yeah.
you take a breath. Maybe you just let your shoulders drop.
Whatever it is, it starts with listening.
Interesting. I think I'm going to carry that word with me for the rest of the week. Thank you for walking us through this. It's been genuinely very eye-opening.
It was a pleasure to unpack it with you.
And thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive. Take care of yourselves. Okay, so we really need to talk about this optimization trap. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? This era where every single part of our lives is something to be, I don't know, hacked or tracked or improved.
Every single thing.
Yeah, we track our steps, we monitor our REM cycles, we color code our calendars, and we listen to deep dives like this one, hoping to get that one little nugget that'll make us 10% more efficient.
It's the prevailing mindset, isn't it? The whole fix-it mentality.
Totally.
If you feel tired, there must be a supplement for it. If you feel anxious, there's got to be a productivity hack to organize your way out of it. We treat being human like it's software that needs another patch.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's just exhausting. It feels like we're in a race where the finish line just keeps moving. But that is exactly why I'm so interested in the source stack you brought in today.
Right.
Because on paper, this looks like the complete opposite of some high-performance manual. In fact, I think you called it a sleep-friendly article.
That's right. And I want to be really clear about what that means. This isn't a medical journal. It's not some breaking news report.
Okay.
It's a text that was originally designed to be soft. It's wordy, it's rhythmic, and its main job is to lull the reader into a state of calm. It's counter-programming.
So wait, are we doing a deep dive into a bedtime story?
In a way, yeah. But, and this is the key thing, this is why we're here, it's a Trojan horse. Because beneath that, that soothing, sleepy vibe, this text actually lays out a pretty profound psychology of non-interference. It argues that we don't need to engineer ourselves, we just need to notice ourselves.
Noticing versus fixing.
Exactly. It offers a framework for understanding why we do what we do, but without all the pressure to change it immediately.
That's the distinction we're going to explore today, because as I was reading this, I realized it covers 3 huge areas. The signals our bodies send, why we get so burned out, and how we actually process emotions. And it does it in a way that feels... well, it feels surprisingly scientific for something that's meant to put you to sleep.
It is surprisingly rigorous. It suggests that psychology isn't just happening in your brain or in a therapy session.
Right.
It's happening in the way you hold your shoulders or the way you break eye contact or even how you feel when you're trying to pick a pasta sauce at the grocery store.
Okay, let's start there with the physical. The source calls it the silent conversation. And I think most of us assume we know what body language is. We've all seen those videos on, like, how to power pose to dominate a meeting or whatever.
Right, the whole dominance narrative. But this source just flips that on its head. It's not about how to project power. It's about how to gather data.
Gather data there.
The core idea here is that the body is constantly broadcasting a signal, and our problem is that we immediately judge that signal instead of just, reading it.
Okay, give me an example of that judgment, because I feel like I'm pretty good at reading people.
Sure. Let's take eye contact. It's the most primal signal we have. The source notes that when someone holds our eye contact, we feel noticed. It sort of validates our existence. But let's look at the flip side. You're in a meeting, you're pitching an idea you're really passionate about, and the person across from you is, I don't know, looking at the ceiling or staring at the table. What's your immediate gut reaction?
Oh, yeah, 100%. My first thought is I'm tanking.
Right.
I'm thinking, okay, they're bored. They hate this. They think I'm an idiot. It feels like, I don't know, a total rejection.
Exactly. You've assigned a motive, you've judged the behavior as disinterest, but the source is really urging us to just pause that judgment.
Why?
It argues that context overrides content. So that person looking at the ceiling, they might be an auditory learner, they might be visualizing the concept you're describing, and to do that, they have to cut off their visual input. So by looking away, they're actually focusing harder.
That's a really fair point. I actually do that sometimes. If I'm really trying to find the right word, I'll look down or away.
But when you do it, you know you're thinking. When someone else does it, you assume they're checking out.
Ouch. Yeah.
The source is just saying that avoiding eye contact doesn't automatically mean something negative about you. It could be shyness or distance or deep thought. The key is just that there's no single meaning.
So the advice here is basically to stop taking body language so personally.
Essentially, yes. If you treat body language as information rather than feedback on your performance, the whole dynamic changes. You stop spiraling into insecurity and you can stay present.
What about posture? Because that's another area where I feel like there's a lot of cultural baggage. Sit up straight is like the first command you learn as a kid.
It is. We connect posture with morality or discipline. A slumped posture means you're lazy. A rigid one means you're attentive.
Right.
But the text invites us to just drop that moral framework entirely.
So if I'm, slumped over my desk like a turtle, which I definitely was prepping for this, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's a story. The source asks you to see your posture as a status report from your nervous system.
A status report. I like that.
Yeah. If your shoulders are hiked up by your ears, your body is telling a story of protection. You're guarding your neck. You're probably in a state of high alert or stress about something.
That's actually a really helpful visual. So instead of thinking, I need to fix my posture because I look sloppy, I could think, why is my body trying to protect my neck right now? What am I reacting to?
Precisely. It turns your body into a dashboard, and the source makes this fantastic point. There is no right or wrong posture. There is only information. If you notice you're collapsed in your chair, that is information telling you you're depleted. If you're rigid, that is information that you're bracing for something.
And once you have that information, then you can decide what to do.
Right.
But you can't do anything if you're just busy criticizing yourself for slouching.
Exactly. And this idea extends to the third element the source covers, personal space. This is one that varies so much between cultures and people, but the source frames respecting personal space as a form of kindness.
I have a friend who is a classic close talker. You know the type. They stand just a little too close. And I always feel this visceral need to back up. It feels aggressive, even when they're being friendly.
That visceral reaction, that's your amygdala firing. We all have a comfort zone. It's this invisible bubble where we feel safe. And when it's breached, even by a friend, our baseline anxiety just spikes.
Yeah.
The kindness the source talks about is just having an awareness of that bubble. It's about reading the room, physically. If you step towards someone and they lean back, that's a signal, not a rejection, just a boundary.
Okay, so we've got this constant stream of data coming in, eyes, posture, space. But a lot of the time, we just ignore those signals until the whole system crashes. And that brings us to the second big pillar of this deep dive, the paradox of being tired.
This is the section of the source where I think that sleep-friendly nature really shines because it gets at something so many of us struggle with. The difference between just being sleepy and being truly depleted.
I think we use the word tired as its catch-all term.
Yeah.
But the source describes the specific thing where you can get 8 hours of sleep, you can spend all of Sunday on the couch, but Monday morning you feel like you've been hit by a truck. Physically, you rested, but you're just exhausted.
The source calls this mental fatigue, and it's really different from physical fatigue, and it's important to get the mechanism here. Your brain burns energy, a lot of it.
Okay.
The source lists 3 specific invisible drains that empty your battery even when you're not moving a muscle. Constant thinking, emotional effort, and, this is the big one, decision-making.
Okay, let's drill down on decision-making. I don't think we realize how much that costs us.
Oh, it's massive. Every single time you make a choice, whether it's should I send this email now or later, or which brand of toothpaste do I buy, you are literally consuming glucose. You're using up a finite resource. It's called decision fatigue.
Okay,
That great.
that explains so much. That explains the grocery store paralysis.
Oh, it's a real thing.
I've literally stood there in the pasta aisle,
Wow.
just staring,
Mhm.
and I feel physically heavy, like I can't even grab a jar. I just
Mhm.
thought I was being indecisive.
But you're not. You're out of fuel. You're running on fumes. The source argues that these little micro decisions pile up. So you might be resting on the couch, but if you're scrolling through Netflix for 45 minutes trying to pick something, your brain is running a marathon.
You're not resting, you're processing.
Exactly. And this leads to this crucial distinction the source makes between sleep and quiet.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, sleep is a biological repair process, but quiet is a sensory state. You can be asleep and still have a really noisy, mind-vivid dreams, grinding your teeth, processing the day's stress. Your mind doesn't just need to go unconscious. It specifically asks for a reduction of input. It needs a break from the data stream.
And when we don't give it that quiet, things start to glitch. The source talks about slow thinking.
Yes. And be honest, how do you usually react when your thinking gets slow? When you can't find a word or you have to reread the same sentence 3 times?
I get frustrated. I drink more coffee. I try to force my brain into gear. I tell myself I'm losing my edge or I'm just being stupid today.
We see it as a failure, a malfunction, but the source offers a completely different way to frame it.
Which is?
It argues that slow thinking isn't a failure, it's a signal. It's actually a safety mechanism.
A safety mechanism against what?
Against total burnout. Think of it like a governor on an engine. If the engine is overheating, the system deliberately slows it down to prevent an explosion. The text says, and I love this phrase, the mind is asking for softness.
Softness. Wow, that is such a loaded word. In a world that's all about high performance, we want hardness.
Yeah.
We want grit.
Which is why this is counter-programming. The source suggests that when you hit that wall of brain fog, the most efficient thing you can do is not to push through, but to yield, to accept the slowness. If you stop fighting the fatigue and just treat it as a valid request from your body, the resistance drops. And interestingly, you recover faster.
It's the difference between driving a car with the emergency brake on versus just pulling over for 10 minutes.
That's it, exactly. We spend so much energy just trying to override our own safety signals.
So, okay, we've covered the body's signals and the brain's battery.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about the third piece, which is usually the most confusing one. Our emotions.
The quiet logic of emotions. This is the section that really challenges the idea that we're rational actors who occasionally get emotional.
Oh.
The source suggests it's the other way around. We are emotional beings who occasionally use logic.
I hate admitting that. I love to think I'm logical. I make pro and con lists.
Oh, the pro and con list is usually just a way to justify the decision your gut already made.
Okay, fair enough.
But the point the source makes is that emotions aren't usually these loud explosions. We tend to only notice them when they're extreme, rage, grief, euphoria. But the text says they're actually gentle guides. They whisper before they shout.
But we ignore the whisper.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Because the whisper is, well, it's inconvenient.
Give me a scenario. How does this play out on a normal day?
Okay, imagine you're at a dinner party. You've been there for 2 hours. You start to feel this really subtle sense of tension, maybe a little tightness in your chest, or just a slight drop in your mood. That's the whisper. It's saying, we're done. Time to go.
But then the logical brain steps in and says, no, it's rude to leave early. You haven't said goodbye to the host. You should stay another hour.
Exactly. So you stay, you override the signal, and what happens an hour later?
I'm cranky, I'm snapping at my partner on the drive home, and I feel totally drained. The whisper became a scream.
There you go. The source suggests that if we practice what it calls calm reflection, just slowing down enough to ask, does this feel right now?
Yeah.
We can catch those signals while they're still manageable.
Does this feel right now? That's the question.
It is. And notice how immediate it is. Not, does this make sense for my 5-year plan, but does this feel right in this second? It grounds you in the present reality of your own nervous system.
But asking the question is only half of it. The other half is how we treat the answer. And this leads to what I think is maybe the most practical tool in this whole deep dive, the shift from criticism to curiosity.
I agree completely. This is the how-to. The source points out that our internal monologue is usually an interrogation. We ask why, but we ask it aggressively.
Why am I so anxious? Why can't I just focus? Why am I like this?
It's an accusation. It implies there's a defect that needs to be found and stomped out. And when you attack yourself, your body just responds with more stress. It becomes a loop.
So what's the alternative? How do you break that loop?
The source suggests a really simple linguistic shift. Instead of asking why, you make a statement starting with one word. Interesting.
Interesting. Huh.
Interesting. I feel really defensive right now. Or, interesting. My heart is beating fast.
It's almost, I don't know, it's kind of scientific, right? A little detached.
And that's the whole point. It creates a gap between you and the emotion. You're no longer the person being the problem. You're the observer noticing the phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity is a neutral state. Criticism is a negative state. When you're curious, you can learn. When you're critical, you just shut down.
I'm trying it right now. Interesting that I feel the need to fill every silence in this conversation.
And that awareness might let you just be comfortable with a pause. It changes the behavior without any of the shame.
That really is the thread connecting all three of these things, isn't it? Whether we're talking about posture or decision fatigue or emotional whispers, it's all about taking the shame out of just being human.
It is. We spend so much of our lives fighting our own biology. We fight the slump in our shoulders. We fight the afternoon brain fog. We fight the urge to leave the party. We see our own natural rhythms as obstacles we have to overcome.
And this sleepy little article is quietly suggesting that maybe if we stopped fighting, we wouldn't be so tired.
That's the core philosophy it lands on. Psychology doesn't need fixing. It needs listening. When you just notice things without pressure, without that immediate need to hack them, life feels lighter. And when life feels lighter, rest comes more naturally.
It's a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious one.
Precisely. If you listen to your body, you can understand the fatigue. If you understand the fatigue, you grant yourself the quiet. If you have the quiet, you can actually hear your emotions guiding you. It's all one connected system.
So we've unpacked a lot today. We've gone from the grocery aisle to the dinner party to the silence of our own minds. But as we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with something concrete, because we promised this wasn't just about sleep. It was about waking up.
I think the challenge for you, listening today, is to conduct a small experiment. In the next hour, your body or your mind is going to send you a signal. You might yawn, you might feel a flash of irritation, you might find yourself staring blankly at a screen.
And the impulse will be to judge it, to say, wake up, or don't be annoyed, or get back to work.
Right. The challenge is to catch that impulse, stop, and just say, interesting. Treat it as a message, not a malfunction. Ask yourself this: if I viewed this fatigue or this emotion not as a problem to be solved, but as a request from my body, what would I do differently in the next 5 minutes?
Maybe you just close the laptop. Maybe
Yeah.
you take a breath. Maybe you just let your shoulders drop.
Whatever it is, it starts with listening.
Interesting. I think I'm going to carry that word with me for the rest of the week. Thank you for walking us through this. It's been genuinely very eye-opening.
It was a pleasure to unpack it with you.
And thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive. Take care of yourselves. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are going to do something that might feel a little counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
We're tackling a subject that, for most people, brings up a very specific kind of anxiety. I'm talking about art history.
Oh, it does have a reputation, doesn't it?
It really does. I think for a lot of us, when you hear art history, you immediately picture, I don't know, a dusty lecture hall.
Yeah, exactly.
You think of a syllabus loaded with dates you can't remember,
Yeah.
movements ending in camalism
Oh.
that you can't define, and just this general feeling that you're supposed to be smart enough to get it.
It feels like a test. We're conditioned to treat it as a puzzle to be solved, or, a timeline of intellectual conquests to be memorized. Who influenced who?
Right. What was the socio-political context of this brushstroke? It's exhausting.
It really is.
But the source material we're working with today, it takes that entire framework and, well, it just throws it right out the window.
I know, it's so refreshing.
We're looking at a text titled A Slow, Quiet Journey Through Art History. And honestly, reading through it to prep for this,
Mm-hmm.
it felt less like studying and more like, I don't know, taking a nap in a sunbeam.
That is the perfect way to describe it. This text frames the entire history of human creativity, not as a list of facts, but as a long human story.
Hmm.
And here's the hook that really caught my attention. It explicitly says there is nothing to learn here.
Nothing to learn. I mean, that is a bold opening move for an educational text.
It is, but the argument is that instead of something to learn, there's something to listen to. The mission of this deep dive isn't to make you an expert on the Baroque period.
Right.
It's to explore how this source recontextualizes art, from the first mark on a cave wall to like the throw pillows on your couch, as a journey that doesn't hurry.
So we're going to set a specific tone today. We aren't rushing. We're going to unpack the sensory details this source gives us, the light, the stillness, the connection. We're going to try to see art the way this author sees it, as a tool for slowing down.
Okay, I'm ready.
So let's start at the absolute beginning. And I don't mean the Renaissance. I mean way back.
Long before cities, long before books, we're starting in the caves.
The first marks. What struck me immediately about this section of the source was how tactile it was.
Yes.
He didn't talk about cognitive leaps. It talked about materials.
Stone, ash, and earth.
It's so raw. The text paints this picture of someone thousands of years ago taking a handful of red earth or ash mixed with fat and just pressing their hand against a cold stone wall.
And we've all seen photos of those handprints, right? They're iconic.
We have, but we usually analyze them so scientifically. This text goes straight for the internal monologue. It asks, why did they do that?
And the answer it comes up with is, it's just chilling.
It says these marks were not decoration. They weren't trying to, spruce up the living room.
No. The source argues they were acts of connection. That's a crucial distinction. We tend to project our modern ideas of art for art's sake onto the past, but the text suggests it was something more existential.
Existential how?
Well, it provides these short, punchy internal thoughts for those artists. I was here, I saw this, I remember.
Wow. It's a shout into the void, isn't it?
Completely. And think about the environment. The source emphasizes these were quiet places.
No traffic, no hum of electricity.
No notifications, just the sound of wind or maybe water. And the light was low, just flickering firelight.
That phrase, art was born in stillness. That really stuck with me, because today we consume art in these brightly lit, crowded museums, or we scroll past it on a phone screen while watching TV.
Right.
But the source argues that the origin of the impulse to create is inseparable from the dark and the quiet.
It sets a baseline. Art starts as a way to verify your own existence in the dark. It's a very intimate, lonely act. But, humans don't stay in the caves forever.
We organize, we build.
And this leads to the next major shift the text identifies. The ancient world.
And the vibe shifts completely here. We move from that mysterious dark to open spaces.
And the psychological function of the art shifts, too. If the cave was about, I am here, the ancient world, think Egypt, Greece, the early empires, it's all about order.
The source describes this era as steady and calm.
Mm-hmm.
The visuals are really distinct in the text. It talks about stone figures standing tall, walls that tell these simple stories. But what interested me was this idea of rules.
Okay.
We usually think of artistic rules, like those rigid Egyptian profiles or the specific ratios of Greek statues, as restrictive, lacking creativity. But this source frames them as comforting.
That's a fascinating insight to pull out. The text suggests that the ancient world was chaotic, dangerous, unpredictable. In that context, art provided a feeling of order.
A feeling of order.
There's a beautiful phrase the text uses. It says,
Yeah.
This art served to give shape to time.
Give shape to time. That is deep, but also a little abstract. Can you unpack what that actually means?
Well, think about time. It's terrifying, right? It destroys everything. It flows and washes things away. But if you carve a figure in stone and you do it according to a perfect mathematical rule that doesn't change, you're creating something that defies time. You're creating stability.
So the rigidity wasn't because they couldn't paint realistically. It was a strategy.
Exactly. The source mentions balanced bodies and peaceful faces. These statues aren't screaming. They're not running. They are anchoring the viewer.
It was a way to say, the world is chaotic, but here, in this stone, things make sense.
I like how you put that. It's like a safety blanket made of marble.
Huh, right. So we have the dark, existential connection of the caves, then the bright, sunny order of the ancients, and then history turns the page. We go back inside.
The Middle Ages.
But it's a different kind of inside than the caves.
Definitely. This is the era of candlelight.
The sensory description here is really rich. The source talks about paintings glowing softly, gold and deep colors filled quiet rooms, It feels very warm, very enclosed.
It does. But this is also where a lot of modern people get tripped up with art history. Well, you look at medieval art, and the perspective is often weird.
The hands are too long. The babies look like little old men. It looks flat. We judge it against a photograph and say, well, they weren't very good at drawing, were they?
Right. But the source tackles this head on. It argues that accuracy wasn't the goal.
The goal was feeling.
Exactly. The text says, not everything needed to look real. Art spoke in symbols.
So if a saint is drawn twice as big as a castle, it's not because the artist didn't understand scale.
No.
It's because the saint is more important than the castle.
Precisely. It's a hierarchy of meaning, not a hierarchy of optics. And the source describes the viewing experience in a way that I found really compelling. It calls it a slow experience.
The slow experience.
It says the eyes rested, the mind followed deeply.
It sounds almost trance-like.
That's the implication. Because you weren't busy critiquing the anatomy, oh, that muscle's in the wrong place. You could just let the gold and the color wash over you. It was meditative. It was designed to induce a spiritual state, not an analytical one.
That is a helpful reframing. You're not supposed to look at it to critique it. You're supposed to look through it. Okay, so we have the dark stillness, the bright order, and the glowing gold. Now we hit the big one.
The Renaissance. The moment when artists began to look outward again.
Now, usually when we cover the Renaissance, we talk about the Medicis, the money, the grand frescoes.
The genius inventors.
Right. But this text, it zooms way in to the micro level, talks about observation.
It's a return to the physical world, but with a new layer of intimacy. The source describes artists watching how light touched skin, noticing small expressions.
That word care stood out to me in the text. It defines this era not by grandeur, but by patience and care.
I think that's the core argument here. When you paint someone's face with that level of detail, capturing the wrinkle, the shadow under the eye, the texture of the lip, you are engaging in a profound act of attention.
You're saying this person, this human individual, matters.
Yes, exactly. The text notes that people in art began to look thoughtful, present, human. They weren't just symbols of God anymore. They were people you could have a conversation with.
The source describes them as alive but calm.
Alive but calm. That seems to be the sweet spot this source loves. It's not dead stone, but it's not chaotic motion either.
It is. It's that balance.
But history rarely stays balanced. As we move past the Renaissance, the source describes a shift where art became more emotional.
We're moving into the era where things get a little looser.
A lot looser. The text says artists allowed more feeling into the work. Colors softened or grew stronger. Brushstrokes became visible.
That visibility of the brushstroke is crucial, isn't it? Before this, in the Renaissance, you tried to hide the fact that it was a painting. You wanted this smooth window into reality.
And now the artist is saying, I made this. You can see my hand moving. You can see the speed.
The source uses some beautiful metaphors for this era. It says some paintings felt like a breath, and others felt like a memory.
I love that memory comparison. Think about a memory you have. It's not an HD video, is it?
Not at all.
It's blurry around the edges. It focuses on the feeling of the moment, not the precise geometry of the furniture. The source says art no longer followed one path. It wandered.
And usually wandering sounds bad. It sounds like you're lost. But the source claims this wandering felt peaceful.
It was a freedom from those strict rules we talked about in the ancient world. It allowed for the subjective experience. This is how the sunset felt to me.
And that leads us, almost inevitably, to the part of art history that usually makes people the most anxious.
Ah, yes. The part where my 5-year-old could do that.
We're talking about modern art.
Modernity, simplicity, and daily life.
Now, usually, this is where the narrative of quiet hits a brick wall. People find modern art loud, confusing, aggressive.
Pretentious.
Yes. But this source doubles down. It calls modern art simple and quiet.
It really flips the script. It describes modern art as a single shape, a soft color, an empty space. This is talking about minimalism, clearly. Rothko, Agnes Martin.
Right. And here is the killer insight from the text. And I think this is the key to understanding this whole perspective. It says, modern art does not explain itself.
And it frames that as a relief.
Wait, explain that to me. Why is it a relief that it doesn't explain itself? Usually that's what frustrates people. They stare at a blue square and say, I don't get it.
Because it asks nothing. Think about our lives today. Everything is demanding your attention. Advertisements, emails, notifications, news chyrons.
They all want you to process information. They want you to decode, to buy, to reply, to feel outraged.
Exactly. And even a Renaissance painting asks you to know your Bible stories. A history painting asks you to know your politics. They require cognitive load.
But a blue square.
It asks for nothing. It just sits there. The source suggests that modern art allows for rest because it stops the information processing machine in your brain.
So it's not a puzzle you're failing to solve. It's a break room.
It's visual silence. You can just look at the color and feel blue.
Yeah.
That's it.
I actually love that. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be present.
And that idea of presence brings us to the final phase the source discusses. And this is my favorite part, because it takes art out of the museum entirely.
Art in everyday life.
This connects the loop right back to the beginning. Art started in the caves, intimately connected to daily survival. Then it went into temples, then palaces, then museums, places you visit.
But now
Now, the source posits, it lives quietly among us again.
it lists examples that are incredibly mundane. It says art is in how we arrange a room, how we choose colors, how we notice light.
It's democratizing the concept. It implies that you don't need a degree or a paintbrush to participate in this long human story.
You participate just by deciding to put a green pillow on a beige sofa because it makes you feel calmer.
Or noticing how the morning sun hits your kitchen table. The source treats that moment of observation as equal to looking at a masterpiece.
It dissolves the barrier between the artist and the viewer.
We are all curators of our own existence. If you are paying attention to the aesthetic quality of your life, if you are pausing to notice the light, that is art.
So if we zoom out and look at this whole journey, we've gone from ash handprints in a dark cave to golden saints, to human faces, to blue squares, and finally to the pillows on our couch.
What is the through line here?
What is it?
The source sums it up beautifully. It calls art history a long breath.
A long breath.
It says it moves through time without effort. That is the core thesis. We're conditioned to view history as a struggle, a series of conflicts, wars, and aggressive shifts.
Right.
This source asks us to view it as a continuous, gentle flow of humans trying to make sense of being alive.
And the instruction it gives the reader,
Right.
or in our case, the listener, is so contrary to everything we usually do on this show. Usually, we are trying to give you takeaways, facts to memorize.
And this source says you do not need to remember it.
You do not need to understand
You
it.
can let it pass.
That is incredibly liberating. We are in an age of information overload. We're drowning in context. This source offers a different path. It says the value isn't in the retention of data.
The value is in the experience of the moment. It's almost medicinal. The text describes a physiological reaction. The mind rests, the body softens, and sleep arrives gently.
The text itself is designed to function like the art it describes. It's a tool for regulation.
It really is.
It's been a slow, quiet journey just talking through it. I feel my heart rate lowering just discussing these concepts. It makes you realize how much we rush through our consumption of culture.
It does. And it leaves us with a really provocative thought to chew on as we finish up.
What's that?
Well, if art history is simply a human story that moves slowly, as the source suggests, perhaps the act of viewing art has nothing to do with the past.
Go on.
We go to museums to learn about history, or so we tell ourselves, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe we don't look at a Renaissance painting to figure out what a painter was thinking 500 years ago. Maybe the point isn't the history at all.
Maybe the point is just to find a moment of stillness in our own present.
Exactly. Maybe the art is just a device, a machine to help us stop rushing.
That is a lovely thought. The art isn't about the then, it's about the now. It's an anchor.
It's an anchor.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. I hope this gave you a bit of a breather in your day. Next time you look at a painting, or even just the way the light hits your wall this afternoon, don't try to analyze it.
Don't try to find the date or the technique.
Just let it be stillness. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care.